What's up, Sifted crew? Welcome to GameFace, episode 393 on Sifted Games at Sifted.net. Hope you guys are having an awesome week. Hope you've had an awesome week full of great games. We're here to talk about some awesome games today, and alongside me to do that is Matt Keil. What's up, Matt?
All right, just coming up for air after festival week.
You had a huge week this week.
Yeah.
Debuted a new film, right?
Yep. Premiered our friend Jason Chung's directorial debut at Dances with Films at the Chinese Theater.
A big venue.
Went well. Well received. We had a good Friday night slot, so we're the last shorts block in the whole festival. So,
VIP, baby.
last narrative shorts.
Yeah.
Didn't win any awards, but I didn't expect. We're genre, so.
How many films were in the festival?
Oh, I don't remember. 100 something.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot of competition
A lot.
in LA.
Yeah. Well, like, you know, they have the jury awards for the official selections, and then they have the audience awards because after everything you watch, you can vote with a code on your phone. And the jury awards went to all the films that were about, like, you know, real issues and real and, you know, serious things, and the audience awards all went to the movies about dogs.
Everybody loves the pets.
Apparently, we learned something. Okay.
We need to make movies about dogs.
Put the dog in next time. We got you. We hear you.
At least one scene where you pet the dog.
Yeah. So
well, congratulations.
Good. Thanks.
Yeah.
So it turned out very well. When they at the Q&A, when the moderator said to Jason, like, so this is your first film that you've ever written or directed. The audience went, whoa. They did not think that was made by someone who had never made a movie before.
Because the movie's great, one.
Very,
and also,
very well done.
We're all a little older as well, so I'm sure
yeah,
people
I mean,
are like, wow, how was that your first attempt?
Yeah, well, I mean, we know Jason from Tech TV back in San Francisco.
20-some years we've known him.
24 years.
Yeah.
And we were 25 when we met, or I was 25. He was old.
Young bucks.
But, yeah, I mean, he's a giant movie, you know, he's been training his whole life to do this. And he's been an editor and been in stuff all the time. If you watched X-Play, you would recognize him as
Johnny Extreme,
or
to the extreme, to the max.
Or,
remember that guy? That's who we're talking about.
Or Darth Fanboy.
Yeah.
The evil fanboy who attacks Morgan that time.
Yeah.
Or the voice of Bob in Bob
right.
and Steve.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So
the Splinter Cell cooperative play.
Yeah.
I don't know what that was pretty groundbreaking at the time.
Splinter Cell Co-op Theater. Yeah, I mean, we're obviously following in the Red versus Blue footsteps there.
Yeah.
But I think it was the first time anyone done that with Splinter Cell.
I think it was the first time it was ever legitimately funny.
You may have something there.
I never thought the Red versus Blue stuff was funny. Creative for sure, but I never found it funny.
There had a couple moments.
Yeah.
There's a couple moments. But in general, they got a little too into storytelling.
Yeah.
I think. And
a little heavy-handed.
We were always just nonsense. Although if you watch those Splinter Cell Co-op Theater things now,
there's some things said in there.
We probably wouldn't say the same things.
Yeah.
It was a lot of gay panic.
Long time ago.
It was 2006.
Yeah.
That's what humor was then.
It kind of was, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, but yeah, he's been one of the inner circle for a very long time. So it was good to finally get this thing off the ground, and hopefully there'll be more stuff that we get to do later because he's got a lot of ideas.
As always, if you have any projects that our crew here can help support, just give us the links, let us know, man, and we'll bump it up.
If it's in any other festivals, I mean, that's the only festival it's in so far. But if it goes around the country more, we will definitely talk about it. Because even if we can't make it to some faraway place, like we couldn't get to when my friend Brian, who directed the last two, that played several places we couldn't get to, like Shanghai and Austria. I played in Vienna. One of them played in Vienna, and we won an acting award in Vienna for our actress Amy Sloan.
Wow!
And they sent it. Turns out, if you win an award, they will ship it to you, but you have to pay them for that.
You have to pay for it. Yeah.
And in that case, it's bad if you win one of the big ones.
I've heard of like award shows that make you pay for the award.
There are some that will do that. Yeah, the really chintzy
you have to
ones
pay to have the award made.
I've not run into that yet.
Thank God. Well, how are you guys doing? Let's check you guys out. Let's pull the chat up and see how your week is going. So we gave you guys a little bit of a preview. They're saying turn up Matt's mic. You guys do this every week. The settings are exactly the same as it was last week. Nothing has been touched. Anyway, I'm not touching the mics. I'm not doing it. Johnny Extreme, Controller Zen remembers Johnny Extreme. He was in a bunch of stuff I produced as well. He was in Race to G4ia. He was in the bar scene there, smashing bottles on his crotch.
Yeah, I still have the shirt.
Yeah, it was a great character, and we use it a lot. John Alexander, 2839, thank you. First time chat, man. Welcome to GameFace. Welcome to Sifted. And thank you for Twitch Prime. Look at you, man. Double whammy. That's freaking awesome. Sidotike says congrats to you. What else we got? Darmus, thank you for Twitch Prime. Everyone's giving us a happy affiliate anniversary message. I didn't even know that happened, but apparently when people are logging in, it's giving them like a pop-up or something.
Like Twitch affiliate?
Yeah, Twitch affiliate, yeah. We have to stream more to go to the next level of partner. We don't do enough hours per week. Our audience is plenty big enough, but we just don't stream enough. Silk Snake, thank you for the happy affiliate anniversary. Sleeping Turtle 3, thank you for Twitch Prime. So we got another Twitch Prime here. Let's see if I can pronounce this one. Joaz. What do you think it is, Matt? Joaz. I'm trying.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good one. You stumped us with that one.
A lot of consonants.
Yeah. What else we got here?
And they can hear us.
Yeah.
Oh.
Tigers, 1984, thank you for Twitch Prime. Big TDRK, thank you for Twitch Prime. Darukas, thank you for Twitch Prime. My Timbo, thank you. Yuli22, thank you. Who else we got? LQ3X, thank you.
Last week.
That was after our last broadcast. And people were mentioning, so when we were playing the music before the stream started today, my mic was up. So people who joined the stream early got a little preview, a little taste of what we're going to talk about on the show. And I'm going to give that to you guys right now. We're going to discuss the big Capcom Next event that happened yesterday. We're going to talk about Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. We're going to talk about Super Monkey Ball, Banana Rumble, which is the brand new Monkey Ball game. And, of course, we have an awesome selection of housekeeping smaller stories for you guys today as well. Also, there was the first Descendant launched today, so we didn't have time to get into that before today's show, but we'll definitely talk about that next week. Oddly enough, the beginning of July is packed with games. The last 2 months, it's been the end of the month. Now July, it all ends on like July 19th. College Football 25 comes out that day, and then there's nothing for the next week. But the early part of July, loaded with games. Flintlock is in there. There's a bunch of pretty good stuff. So July's actually shaping up to be a pretty good month. If you haven't watched our episode of Dossier for July yet, it is up for our patrons right now. Basically, that show just runs through the 10 biggest games you should probably keep your eye on as this month goes on to figure out which games you want to buy in July. And that'll be up for everybody else here in a few days, but right now it's up for our patrons. And it's actually a pretty good rundown of games for July. I was pleasantly surprised. We are in the dog days of summer, Matt. It's even hot here in LA, which it really hasn't been, and it's supposed to get really hot like later this week. Also, I should mention July 4th is Thursday here in America. And we will be dark on Sifted that day. Yeah, now it means like nothing. Our independence from a king. Now we're anyway. So on July 4th, the site will be dark. We will not be publishing. Just something to take into consideration. My butt will be barbecuing out on the grill, making some burgers and some hot dogs. And you guys should be doing the same thing, kicking your feet up and enjoying the day off. Hopefully, you have the day off from work. And obviously,
probably not in Europe.
For our fans in Europe, it's just as usual.
UK definitely doesn't get the day off.
That's for sure. That's pretty funny, actually. But anyway, welcome to GameFace 393. I feel like we got a good show for you guys today. And to prove it, let's get on with our housekeeping. We're going to kick things off with Nintendo this week. So everyone's kind of wondering why the Switch 2 didn't end up coming out this year. Why was it delayed into 2025? And what Nintendo has really said all along is that it did that. It's not because it's not ready or it doesn't know what the Switch 2 is going to be. It's because Nintendo wants to manufacture as many units as possible before its launch. And it just reiterated that this week, that not only is it working to make as many units as possible, somebody asked them a question about how are you going to avoid the scalping situation that really plagued the beginning of the first Switch's lifespan. And Nintendo responded with, by making a boatload of Switch units. How much do you believe that, Matt?
I mean, I believe it in the sense that they're probably going to make a ton of them. I don't know if it's going to matter in terms of stopping day one scalping. You know, I mean, that's... Demand is demand.
How many do you think Nintendo would have to make for day one to satisfy demand for Switch 2?
I have no idea. I don't even know how many they made for Switch 1.
I think it was only like 5 million, I think, worldwide or something. Maybe less, actually.
I don't know. It depends where you're distributing them. It depends. I mean, I imagine the scalping was the worst here in America.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, people will just buy them up and scalp them no matter what, I think.
Right.
Because you're kind of down to how much the stores can order or are willing to distribute to each location more than how many Nintendo makes. That really just gives you a pipeline to get more sooner to replace the ones that sell out on day one.
Yeah, because to your point, Matt, it doesn't matter how many Nintendo makes. It could make 10 or 20 million.
Yeah.
The scalpers would just buy the other 8 million that real players didn't want, and then put them on eBay and double the price.
Every scalper is probably willing to buy another couple hundred.
Oh, yeah.
And flip them, so multiply that by how many scalpers are in the country, and I don't think you can actually make enough to avoid that.
I don't think you
entirely.
can either. I think Nintendo is crazy naive about this, thinking that it's even possible to create enough units for launch that this would not happen.
I mean, it's just like a nice thing to say. In the end, it's like they don't care as long as they get sold.
Right.
So
one way or another, those units are going to be sold to either real players or to scalpers.
Yeah.
And
it's mostly probably going to be a thing. I mean, if you're going to make that many, I think you're probably shipping about the same number on launch day. I would just imagine that it means that you're going to get more Switches in like a week or two rather than a month or two. This time.
I think maybe the better question is, what do you think the real demand will be for Switch at launch among players?
I think pretty high.
Yeah, it feels like it.
You're not going to have a Zelda this time, so I mean that definitely helped to have.
But if they have a 3D
Mario
and Mario Kart,
or with that
Metroid Prime 4.
Like get a bunch of heavy hitters around, and I think you'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue 5 million just demand of players. Like it would probably take to satisfy launch demand.
That was what
in the U.S.
Switch,
I'm saying
just the U.S. Maybe. Yeah. I think it depends. It depends on the launch lineup, but I don't see any reason to think the launch lineup won't be solid.
Yeah, I think no matter what, you're going to struggle to find a Switch 2 within the first 6 months.
I mean, you're definitely going to want to do the fucking pre-order dance like last time.
Yeah, you have to camp on these websites.
Sit there until the direct is over, and like I did last time.
Keep hitting refresh and hope you get lucky.
I got it.
I did too. Yeah.
I got all 3 of them.
Well, I got Switch from Nintendo. I don't have to worry about that one. But I got PS5 and Xbox Series X. I mean, it was a pain in the ass, but I did get both of them, and I was on it. Like I had relatives who were kind of on it and didn't get one for like 2 years. I mean, I was in there. Like
I got two because I ordered from different places in case GameStop canceled my order because they did that sometimes.
Yeah.
So I ended up with 2, and basically everyone I knew had already gotten one. Like everyone I knew wanted one at launch got one. So it took like a year for someone to be like, I think I'll get a Switch. I'm like, I have one for you. So
yeah.
But and also it was nice to have that kind of as backup in case my sticks died or something. There was enough hardware problems. I'm like, maybe I'll just keep a backup in case some shit goes down.
As it turned out for me, I got the PlayStation 5 at Best Buy, and I went in to get it, and I knew I already had it, so I didn't go in like right away, and that ended up being a mistake because I got one of the last units, and like the last 5 units had like torn boxes and torn handles, and they're like, this is torn. You still going to take it? And I was like, of course I'm still going to take it. No one's going to turn this down. And of course, they didn't, cut any money off of it or whatever. And in hindsight, it didn't really matter all that much anyway. But
you just throw the box out anyway.
Yeah.
But as long as it's not damaged.
Yeah. As long as I get a unit that works, that's really all I care about. I know some people try to resell and they want the box to be pristine and all that stuff. I'm not worried about
I've never
that.
Resold hardware in my life.
I have not either, actually. I still have all my consoles.
Never resell hardware.
I mean, they do sit in the closet stacked up in their boxes, but I don't really use them.
But, I've never... There's always a time you might want the system again or something. Software, sure. If you're sure you're done with a game, sure.
Yeah.
Like, get rid of it. But I never sell hardware.
Yeah. Chat, what do you guys think Nintendo's going to need to be able to produce to satisfy demand in the U.S.? Japan, they could probably produce 1 million. They'd be all right. U.S., a different story. Europe, a different story, but not to the same degree as America, I would argue. But I think 5 million even may not be enough to satisfy America. And I would be shocked if Nintendo has 5 million or more, one. The other thing I would say too, Matt, is that when you say you're going to ramp up production and you're going to produce a ton of units, that also extends the amount of time that the unit is in production, and in my estimation, increases the chances of leaks.
True.
The longer that thing's in production, the more eyeballs see that thing going across the line, the higher the chances of somebody snapping a photo, the higher the chances of someone going on social media and being like, hey, I saw the Switch 2, blah, blah, blah. So it'll be an interesting little dance. Or just grab one.
Grabbing one.
Seriously. So it'll be an interesting little dance to see how Nintendo
just pulling
plays
one out
this
of
stuff.
the reject bin.
Yeah,
you know?
seriously. Because all you need is just the form
hardware.
factor.
Yeah, if you want to see what it looks like at this point.
Cinetyke says you don't think Japan will go crazy for new Switch. I don't. I mean, it was a slow burn in Japan for the first Switch, and it still hasn't sold all that many units. It's dominating the market, so to speak, but the market for console gaming there is so small now that it's really just kind of a blip on the radar. It's sad. Like, I remember going back to Japan when it wasn't that way, when it was all about consoles, and it was a different story back then, but not now. Like, it's really not about console gaming there anymore. So, no. I mean, I don't think Japan will go crazy for the new Switch, even though, the current Switch is dominating the market in Japan. Erebus Jones brings up a good point. Depends on the launch titles. Absolutely. Let's assume that a new 3D Mario is going to be there, Mario Kart 9 is going to be there, and Metroid Prime is going to be there. I think that's pretty safe.
It also kind of depends like what cross-platform is happening there.
Yeah. The X Factor, too, I think, is 3D Mario. I think Nintendo, even if it's ready, maybe like, you know what, let's just wait like 3 or 6 months after launch so we get that second wave.
Kind of depends how close it is to Christmas.
That's a good point, too. You're right. I think if it's at the holidays, all 3 of those games are coming out.
Blow it out.
If they put it out in March...
You save Mario for Christmas.
Yeah. So we'll see. But let's see. Vincent says it also depends on if they launch in March or October, just like Matt and I said. Great minds think alike, Vincent. Vincent says 34 million Switches have sold in Japan as of March 2024. Yeah. Which is a little bit better than I thought, I think. I thought it was around 20, something like that. And it's easily the best-selling console in Japan. Erebus also says, Nintendo has concurrently successful consoles since the SNES. Surely there's a zero chance this bombs. Yeah, so that was a question on Pachter Factor recently. Somebody pointed out that Nintendo has struggled to have 2 successful consoles back-to-back. Yeah. There was the NES and the SNES, and that's the only time.
But they haven't struggled with successful handhelds.
No, that's true. They have been successful every freaking time.
So I think you can err on the side of handheld on this one.
Yeah, which I think, at least half of the people who buy a Switch, that's pretty much all they use it for.
Yeah, I would be floored if this thing doesn't do as well or better than the Switch.
Me too. Yeah. Because the other thing, too, is that Nintendo, unlike Nintendo...
What else are they doing?
1. But 2, Nintendo, unlike Nintendo, has managed to support the Switch from beginning to end. This has never happened. Usually Nintendo consoles, by the 3rd year, you're whistling Dixie trying to find
games. They go silent because they're working on everything for the next one. But not having to also support a handheld has kind of freed them up to do a
good
bunch
things.
of remasters and remakes, which is fine.
Yeah, we're talking about another one today.
At least it's something to do.
Yeah, and their games are generally pretty great. So if you remaster them, usually the end product's going to be at least passable. So yeah.
In fact, I would argue that it's time for a Luigi's Mansion 1 remake.
Yeah,
get all 3 of them on the system.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Lestevet brings up the Virtual Boy. I don't know where we would put that.
Yeah, that was it wasn't a successor to anything. It was just sort of a weird experiment.
Like one-off thing. It's kind of an anomaly in Nintendo's lineup of hardware.
Very strange.
Yeah, and obviously it didn't do very well. So
it wasn't until the Wii U that you really scratched your head the same way with what do you think?
What?
You did the wrong drug shipment get to Nintendo HQ this time?
Fentanyl got there early, apparently. Mike Q says, to be honest, I think Switch 2 will do great, but not quite as good as Switch 1. I wonder why that is, why you feel that way.
I don't know.
Yeah. Vincent says, I would be surprised if the Luigi's Mansion 1 3DS port arrives on Switch 1 in late 2025, early 2026. Wouldn't be surprised, yeah. Because they're kind of running out of stuff to remake at this point.
Yeah. How about Rogue Squadron?
Yeah. There's another one. Yeah.
I mean, I know that's not up to them, but...
Yeah.
I'm still mad at them because there was a full collection of all 3 of them for the Wii that was done by Factor 5. Factor 5 finished it.
That's right. I forgot about that. It. Yeah. Yeah.
What the hell is wrong with you?
Yeah, why would you do that? That's easy money.
I don't know.
Makes no sense.
Because I guess it was too hardcore, probably. Those games were hard. Those games were, annoyingly hard. Like, if you really want... to get through it wasn't hard, but if you wanted to actually do well...
Get the
medals and the platinum medals...
Oh, yeah.
I never got all of them.
Me either.
Those. They were too hard.
I gave up on a lot of them. I had a buddy who got them all, though.
Yeah, I had a friend who did that.
And literally, you couldn't tap the analog stick the wrong direction for even
perfection.
A pixel.
Perfect. But to the point that when I finally met the guys, the Factor 5 guys, I was at E3 or something one day. I was like, "What the hell is wrong? Can any of you do that?" And they're like, "No."
Then why? Why?
We know it's possible.
It's also Star Wars too, which is like a an IP casual players might enjoy more than typical games. So yeah, it doesn't really add up. But I think we can all probably agree that the Switch 2 is probably going to be at least moderately successful. Even at this point, if Nintendo just is like, we're not releasing any more games for Switch, even if they've announced, I don't think anything you could do would hurt it.
Yeah, unless it like has syringes on the side that poison you or something. I don't know what like.
Yeah. Vincent says, I think the biggest question for Switch, if Switch 2 outsells Switch 1, is if Pokemon Gen 10 is cross-gen or not when it launches in 2026.
That's up there.
Yep, that makes a big difference.
It will be cross-gen.
It probably will be.
I'll put money on that.
Because Nintendo cares more about selling software than it cares about selling hardware, and it will prioritize that. So, yeah, I would agree.
That will be a very interesting thing to see when Nintendo finally makes the leap to this is only on the new Switch.
That's always the big X factor for every.
Because I think that's going to take years.
And it took years for PS5 and Xbox Series.
Yeah. They've always done sort of a cursory move with like games no one really cares about, like Xenoblade Chronicles. Got the new 3DS only
with the little nub, the analog nub.
Yeah, but there were only like 3 games that were new 3DS only, and they just backed off that completely.
No one was buying it.
So I'm curious what this is going to look like, especially because like it's not like the jump from the Wii U where you have to make 2 different versions. You just have to, it's easy, it's free basically. So like what do you when do you really make that cutoff? And I would say years probably.
I mean, financially, it makes sense. At least 2 years, at least. There's so many. There's how many Switch units are there? 150 million or something?
Something like that.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. Like I would say maybe the next Zelda is where you make that jump.
Maybe.
Like you need something that just
at a certain point,
something somebody can't resist.
Yeah. At a certain point, you need something to bump them over the line, basically.
You need
something that'll do it.
Something people can't live without. Make the last holdouts make that jump.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. The sequel to Tears of the Kingdom would definitely do that. So anyway, just more little tidbits about Switch 2 that keep coming out. Seemingly almost every week we mention Switch 2 in housekeeping, and that's a good job by Nintendo. That's what Nintendo wants to be doing. They want podcasts like GameFace to be talking about Switch 2 every single episode if possible. So if it can bleed out a little bit of information, a little breadcrumb trail for us, it's going to pay off in the end for Switch 2. So it'll be interesting to see how that works as time goes on, because we're probably at the point now, Matt, where Switch 2 is 8 or 9 months away.
Yeah.
It's not that far, believe it or not. Yep. The holidays will be here fast, and once that happens, then hopefully we get Switch 2 in Q1. Starting to wonder, though, at this point if that's going to happen, so we'll see. But anyway, that's the latest on Switch 2. Next up, we found out yesterday that the new Crazy Taxi reboot, I don't know if all of you guys are old enough to even remember Crazy Taxi. It was an arcade game. It was also a Dreamcast launch game. Was it a launch game? Or would it come like a month later?
In the U.S. it was. I think.
And it's just this arcade-style racing game where you drive around and pick people up and take them to their destinations. It was built as an arcade game, so if you fail that drop-off, you got to put another quarter in.
Yeah, like games last like 90 seconds if you're not good at it.
Yeah, if you actually turned off like the failure state, you could probably finish Crazy Taxi in like 90 minutes. But when you fail, you have to keep trying over and over again. That's where they extend the life. And it built like a pretty good audience on Dreamcast. People seem to love it.
Yeah, and it had the Offspring songs in it, which like
yeah.
That's really one of the problems with Crazy Taxi is like no one's ever going to think that it's a Crazy Taxi game unless that's the beginning of the level. Like it really only had like the 2 songs, and like, that was the one that saw, and that's the one everyone remembers. And it's just like if you don't have that song in the new one, I don't know what you think you're doing.
It's got to be on the splash screen at least. Yeah, for sure. Well, we finally got some information on what the new Crazy Taxi is going to be, and apparently...
Who are these 20-somethings who have an original Shinobi arcade game in their house?
And who knows what any of the following franchises are? Because this trailer Sega put out, I guess about 6 months ago at this point. It's like, it shows off the new Shinobi, it shows off the new Crazy Taxi, it shows a little snippet of
Golden
the new
Axe
Jet Set Radio, Golden Axe. These people have no idea.
These people were all born after the last installment of almost all of those games.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we got a hint at what the next Crazy Taxi is going to be. And according to reports, it is going to be an open world MMO-ish style game where I guess everybody's a taxi operator. Maybe they should change it to like Uber or something or other. It'll be interesting, actually, if they try to incorporate Uber stuff into the game. Because that's what a taxi is now in 2024.
They'll probably be the bad guys.
Yeah, the evil guys. You're right.
Yeah, you're gonna be like the hip, like independent, like
indie cab driver,
rockin' punk indie cab driver, and you're going to be up against these like the cops and like high tech like Agent Smith style like Uber drivers. Like I bet that'll be the whole thing because that's the style.
But it appears that it's going to be a massively multiplayer game. Here's the old footage we have of it is right here. It's like 8 seconds of it so far.
Yeah, my guess is that it's going to be sort of GTA 6-ish or GTA 5 online-ish, where it's like everyone's out there in the city and you're trying to do your own thing. You interfere with each other if you want.
You have to beat people to fairs and stuff like that. I think it might actually be kind of cool.
I mean, you got to do something different because just the arcade game's too simple to stand on its own today.
Well, it kind of goes back to what I was saying when I introed this topic, which is like it worked great as an arcade game. It didn't work so great as a console game.
Yeah, it lost its luster pretty fast for me as a home. When money is not on the line, because you don't think, I paid $50 for it, but I'm not thinking about. I'm thinking about the quarter I just lost when I'm playing in the arcade, trying to make it last as long as I can, and like that's not really as interesting to me in a home setting.
Yeah,
it's fun if you had people over and everybody's passing the controller around and like that kind of thing. I think there was a split screen mode too on one of them.
The funny thing is that a lot of journalists are slagging the game for this. They're saying that that's a terrible idea to make it an open world MMO style game.
I mean, it's already kind of, not MMO, but it's already pretty open.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it is kind of, for its time,
yeah,
it was an open world.
It feels like a pretty natural evolution of what that game
It makes total sense to me. I don't know what other journalists are freaking out about. I think a lot of times it's just nostalgia. Don't change that thing I used to like.
A lot of times it's just clickbait.
Yeah. Seriously. Oh, we're mad. Come and watch us be mad. Yeah. You're right. There's an element of that for sure.
PC gamers gotten in on that lately.
Yeah. Oh, how the mighty have fallen in that way. And again,
they used to be the boring ones.
Yeah.
And now it's just like, how dare? I'm just like, who are you?
They're trying to survive, is what it is. Like there was another gaming group today that had layoffs at Destructoid and a couple other outlets today. It's like, it just feels inevitable.
Meanwhile, Eurogamer's just like, no, we will remain the tranquilizer of game journalism.
You're right. They haven't budged.
Yeah, will not move.
That's funny.
Not from this spot.
I try to find the happy medium between the two there if I can. But anyway, I don't know. I think people are freaking out over this Crazy Taxi thing for no reason. I think it'll make the game better for consoles.
Yeah.
I'm totally down with it.
You got to do something different. You can't just make the arcade game again.
Yeah.
I mean, and also, I'm sure the arcade game will be in it.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll
probably be like an unlockable. You'll probably
be able to unlock that one and 2.
You can probably go to an arcade, and there'll be a bunch of Sega arcade games in there, and Crazy Taxi will be one of them.
Yeah,
so
I'll be shocked if that's not it.
Because they do it in other games already.
Yeah.
I mean, with Yakuza and stuff like that, so it's easy. So anyway, that's the latest update on the new Crazy Taxi.
Yeah, the Yakuza games need to progress in the timeline into the Naomi board era. Like, we need some of those.
You're right. In this world we live in now, though, it's really hard to predict when we'll learn more about Crazy Taxi.
Actually, I guess they did do Virtua Fighter 3 in that last one. So they are there.
Yeah. Yeah, they're there.
But they didn't want to pay for the Offspring song, so we didn't get Crazy Taxi.
Yeah.
You know what they should put in one of those games at some point is Planet Harriers.
Oh, yeah.
Which has never been on any home.
Yeah, why wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's perfect.
That used to be in the Sega lobby in the building room.
That's right. Yeah.
It's the only place I've ever seen it.
Yep. So anyway, that's the latest update on the next Crazy Taxi. Next up, we just talked about Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erd Tree in last week's episode. It was the featured game in last week's episode. And since then, there's been all kinds of rumblings. First, the day after we did the show, somebody asked From Software about making a film or a TV show around Elden Ring. And they're like, oh, tons of people are talking to us about it. We've been approached by a bunch of different people. And then this week, they asked George R.R. Martin about it. And basically, in the way he likes to say things, he was like, yeah, like we're working on it. Here's the thing, Matt. How do you make a TV show or a film out of this game?
You don't. You make it out of the backstory.
Yeah, I mean, it's even the backstory. It's like, it's so convoluted. Like you were talking about it last week. Like you described it very well. Like how the prose works in this stuff, in these games. And I struggle. But you know what? Based upon how they've done things with like Borderlands and some of these other games, like you're kind of right. Like they can kind of find a way to make almost anything work when it comes down to it. Yeah. They'll just take like his tenets, his bullet points of what he thinks is important about the story, and they'll just give it to a good writer, and he'll just completely fabricate everything.
Yeah, they'll probably. I mean, he wrote the backstory of the world, and then From took it and made the shattering happen, and basically. They basically took his premise for the world and then like had a cataclysm happen that turned it into Dark Souls.
Yeah.
And did the usual like dark bad thing happened and King did bad thing and no one can ever let go of it for some reason and now you have until you kill him because you're special or you're dead or you're special dead and all. It's just like, I don't know. I'll be honest. I mean, I don't pay attention to the lore when I'm playing the game. All I know is that thing wants to kill me, so that's the end.
That's all I need to know.
Of that discussion. And I'll read or watch a video about the lore of the From Software games, and I'm just like, that's stupid. I'm sorry. They're really dumb. It's just, and they're all the same. Like, that's the thing. It's like, the story of Elden Ring is not appreciably different from the backstory of Dark Souls 1.
Or Bloodborne. You walk up to these doorways and you hear somebody whispering, and you're like putting your ear up to the speaker next to your TV to hear what they're saying.
I hope they have that happen at least once in the movie. It's like, how do you replicate the weird way people talk in these games? Because it's clearly intentional.
They do talk weird.
Yeah.
Like, you can hardly ever hear it. Yeah. I have to, like, really crank up, like, my center channel to hear it in these games. Like... And they always have these weird voices, like...
Yeah, but they're memorable. I love that one of the things somebody did once was... It was a tweet, I think, and it was just the single syllables you hear in Dark Souls 2 when you talk to the woman in the hub area to upgrade, and you skip all her dialogue. It posts that, and I recognized it in text. I'm like, oh, that's the Dark Souls 2 lady.
That is hilarious.
Like, that's how much you listen. Yeah,
because everyone's doing the same thing.
So,
oh man.
I mean, I'm sure big epic dark fantasy. Sure, like, if you're willing to spend the money and you think people care, why not? I mean,
I think people will care. I think it will probably do pretty well opening weekend.
I don't think it will.
Really?
No, high fantasy stuff doesn't really catch. Like,
it does. You're right. It kind of doesn't.
If anything was going to be a hit, it would be Dungeons and Dragons. That last one with Chris,
which wasn't bad.
It was really good.
Yeah,
I thought that's exactly what a D&D movie should be. It felt like playing D&D, just dumb enough and silly enough, but also like dramatic. Like, it was the best attempt to capture what D&D actually feels like in a movie, and I think they did a good job. And I hope they get to do more of them. But nobody saw it.
Yeah.
And like, it's just,
no one's going to see any movies right now.
Don't accidentally let Lord of the Rings fool you, or Game of Thrones even. Game of Thrones wasn't popular because of the fantasy element. Game of Thrones was popular because of the characters and the intrigue and
its unpredictable nature.
Die at any moment, and it really ruined how people think of narrative stakes in television at this point.
Actually, that's a good point.
It's like, if someone's not going to die, where are the stakes? I'm like, well, you're not going to die today, but are there stakes for what you did today? Right. Like, could you have just sat around and done nothing all day and everything would have been fine? No, because there's more stakes to human life than whether you die or not.
Yeah.
And that's true of stories, too.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't know. Like, I think the problem is this doesn't really look super different from, like, Excalibur or Dragon Slayer once you, like, make it live action.
Yeah, yeah.
The other thing, I guess,
I wonder how you impart, like, the idea that the games are difficult into other forms of pop culture.
I think you just kill people constantly.
Just easily kill people.
Well, also, that's the thing, is it's not going to take place during any of this.
Right.
It's going to take place thousands of years earlier.
Right.
It's going to be it's going to be nobles and kings and gods and wizards and shit.
Yeah. The other thing too is when you can create your own character, so the lead character hasn't built some kind of a rapport with the audience, so that gives you free range to create your protagonist, I guess.
Your protagonist is probably going to be somebody in the lore.
Yeah. That we don't even know who.
Yeah.
That might be.
I would know. Somebody would know. But
yeah.
I don't know.
I don't either. I have no clue. I don't remember hardly anything about the story in this game.
If I were them, I would lean real hard into how weird all this shit is.
Yeah.
Like, just how fucking strange it can get, and just hope that carries you, because fantasy is a big risk in films. Like, you just don't know if it's going to catch or not.
Yeah.
It depends. Like, and if you can disguise it, if you can make it like not seem like fantasy, but I can't really do that with this game.
No,
so,
that's not happening.
Like Star Wars is fantasy, but no one thinks about it because it looks like science fiction.
Right. Yeah.
If you put a spaceship in it, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's sci-fi." It's like, no, there's no science in Star Wars. The only science in Star Wars is the thing everybody hated, which is the midichlorians.
Right.
That's
true.
Because in a sci-fi movie, you wouldn't go down a trench. You'd just go straight at the exhaust port, lock onto it 40,000 kilometers away, and launch the thing.
Or you just shoot it from, like, an eon away.
All the people are like, Acolyte sucks because there's no fire in space. There's been fire in space in Star Wars since the first fucking movie. Also, there's no sound in space. Right. I don't know if you know, all the cool Spenbert sound effects wouldn't happen either. very, very weird.
Yeah,
Sometimes
people
you wonder,
pick and choose things to pick on. It seems like a lot of times.
There was one of those like dipshit guys that going slow mo through the fight choreography and saying it was sucked because they weren't actually hitting each other. And I'm like, I don't know if you know this, but no one in a Star Wars movie has actually hit each other with a light sword.
Where that one sandpit scene where they missed the uppercut by like 2 feet or whatever.
The force kick.
Yeah, that's right.
If that, as Boba Fett flails by on a wire in the back of, like, if that happened today, people would just
lose their
fucking minds.
Yeah, so anyway, I can't say, I'm not a huge fan of From Software's games or Elden Ring for that matter. I do think Elden Ring is probably a decent setting for films, but you're right. Like, in the end, it is kind of just generic fantasy.
Yeah.
There's nothing that really sets it apart, unfortunately.
And I think the only thing that's interesting about the stories in these games is how people have to like scavenger hunt for them. And like, so it becomes sort of that same ego boost of like, I pieced together all these scraps of paper and weapon descriptions, and now this is what happened with this. That's why this boss is the way he is.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Oh, yeah, I remember that. I remember that guy.
Yeah.
And then the 2 times I fought him again because he was a clone 3 times in the other. Because the game is way too long and they have 150 bosses, but really they have like 40. You know? How many times I fight those fucking gargoyles?
3, 4 times. Yeah.
Yeah, but so it's like, yeah, I don't know. I haven't really been playing it.
Yeah. Well, it's not in this film won't go into production until like 2 years from now.
Yeah,
at the
so
earliest. Will people even care about Elden Ring, or will it be another game then?
Well, maybe by then they'll be cashing in on Elden Ring nostalgia.
That could be.
Or Elden Ring 2 might finally be done by then.
It would be kind of stupid to not make Elden Ring 2.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't sell that many units and not make it.
One way or the other, the next From game will be a giant open world game again.
Yeah.
Like you're never seeing an original style Dark Souls again. I don't think.
You have to rely on the other guys who do that, and there's tons of them doing it.
Yeah.
So hopefully, a couple of them can get good enough at level design to.
Yeah, I mean, some
people
say they have. I do not.
I don't know that I've seen that yet.
I wouldn't say so.
Yeah.
I'd say Lies of P came close in level design.
It did fold over on itself a good bit.
It that felt pretty good. I just didn't like the way it played.
Yeah, I didn't like the game itself, unfortunately. Next up, so here's something interesting, Matt. Did you realize that Days Gone actually ended up selling really well?
After it dropped in price, yeah.
Yeah. In some of the games that
sold a lot of units. I don't know how much money it made.
Yeah. So some of the games that are getting sequels did not sell as well as Days Gone.
But I bet they sold more early on when they were full price.
Probably, yeah. And actually generated like more revenue.
Yes.
You're right. Well, people are still kind of chiding Sony Bend, the creators of Days Gone, like, hey, these sales are pretty amazing. What's going on with the sequel? They won't give it up. This week, Sony Bend just came out and said, dude, leave us alone. There is not going to be a sequel to Days Gone. It is not happening. They're like, we are working on a new IP. Don't forget that new IP is a game as a service from Sony Bend.
And Days Gone 2 probably would have been too.
Probably could have worked out great as a game as a service, honestly. It might be one I'd be interested in trying.
I can imagine the pitch to the Sony executives about teaming up to handle a horde right now.
Right,
you know?
Yeah. Like, it seems like it would have been a great fit for what
everybody gets to make your own biker.
Right.
I mean, it's like it's
you
obvious.
customize your bike, and you get to pay for all the different paint jobs and the different parts on your bike.
You can expand the game out into however many parts of Oregon you want. You can do a big expansion.
Leave Oregon. You can go to California.
You can do a big expansion into Portland.
Yeah.
Like maybe a big city thing.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it seems perfect, but Sony Bend is like, stop dreaming.
It's perfect except for the fact that nobody really liked this.
Yeah.
It was
us included, really.
Yeah, I have no interest in Days Gone 2.
Yeah.
It's more like a thing that most people that played it were like, that was okay. It wasn't bad.
It had some moments.
That was better than the reviews made it seem, probably.
Yeah.
You know? But
maybe.
It's just meh. You know, the only characters I remember from the game are the ones I hate. I'd buy DLC where I get to kill Boozer. Like, just let Boozer slowly die.
And watch it bleed out.
And, like, never
$5,
see him again.
I'll pay it.
I'd be into that. Like an alternate universe version.
Yeah. I do wonder how much of it was just the reviews of the game. And it being a first-party release and being maybe the lowest reviewed first-party release in 5 years.
I don't think that much because game reviews don't impact the mainstream audience very much. I mean, it was just another zombie game.
I mean, for as far as PlayStation not greenlighting a sequel.
Somewhat.
It might maybe the review scores.
I think it's just the sales. I think it sold well once they dropped the price to like $10 or whatever it became. I mean, I guess this thing was dirt cheap
for quite a while. Yeah.
And like, you know, that doesn't pay the bills. You know,
yeah.
You know, if you can figure out a way to make a Days Gone 2 where everybody we can charge $10 out of the gate, sure, but that's not going to be the same production value as this, obviously.
What do you think is smarter, making a sequel to this game or going fishing with a game as a service, creating a new IP?
I think it's way smarter to move on.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think there's anything worth. It's nothing here worth saving to me.
It does feel like there's a very vocal minority of people who liked this game.
Yeah, for sure.
And it is a minority.
Nothing so terrible somebody on the internet won't like it.
Yeah.
Not that this is an example of terrible, but like it's just not. I mean, a sequel to this probably would be pretty good. Like I think you refine all the ideas in here and make the bike get more than about 4 feet to the gallon, and you know there you go.
Forgot about that.
You kind of got something there. Like there's something here. The game just never finds it.
The execution just wasn't quite there. I think also the game was way too long and padded, and they should have tightened it up and probably would have had enough content to make a good 30-hour game.
Yeah. So I mean, but I just don't. You know, in this era where like one bad reception can like sink the whole development studio, I don't think it's a great idea to throw good money after
bad
mediocre in this case.
Yeah.
Probably better to start over with a new concept that might get people's interest right off the bat. But it's like, in other words, like if the new game doesn't catch fire and bad things happen to Sony Bend, I don't think anyone there should be like, well, if only we'd gotten to make Days Gone 2, everything would have been fine, because I do not believe that's true.
Yeah.
I think Days Gone 2 would be just as much of a risk, if not more of one.
Because
with Days Gone 2, you're fighting uphill against a huge bunch of people that thought the first one was mediocre, and why would they give a shot at another version that is now a game as a service, which everybody counts as a negative almost instantly anyway.
Yeah.
Certainly in the core gaming space.
That's true. Controller Zen says, I'm kind of shocked that the whole zombie craze has lasted so long. I keep thinking it's reached saturation, but people love them. And it's not just games either.
Yeah.
It's everything. Like, there's now we're on like the 5th Walking Dead spin-off TV show.
Yeah, well, that's partly because AMC has nothing else.
I mean, I watched that show way longer than most people did, and I have not watched a single episode of that new spin-off with Michonne and Rick or whatever, where they finally come back. I have not watched a single episode of it, and I'm their audience. Like, I stuck around with The Walking Dead until the end. I am probably a 5%er of the people who are watching that show when it was in its prime. I mean, my guess is they kept 5% of that audience at the end of it. So even me, like, I have been way more open to consuming this stuff in the past, and I'm burning out. Like, I'm to the point where I don't really care anymore. Like, they could announce like a new like Dead movie with Romero and Savini like rolling back together, teaming up for another one, and I don't know if I would care.
Well, I wouldn't care because the last two they did were not very good.
They weren't very good. Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of this stuff isn't good. It all just becomes very derivative. It's like, it feels like creatives in general have run out of options with zombies.
Yeah. You really got to have a good, interesting new idea to justify putting zombies in something at this point.
Yeah.
And like, sure, in a video game, they're an easy enemy to, like, you know, there's no moral quandary. They don't need a motivation. The origins of them can
get beat up culturally for killing zombies. Yeah,
there's no problem with that. Even something as like kind of subversive or raunchy as like Dead Island 2 want to be like, no one complained about how violent the zombie killing was.
Nope. Yeah.
Because it's just zombies.
You get a free pass. Yeah.
You know, those the least they used to be the least controversial enemies you could use in a video game were aliens, zombies, and Nazis.
And now
I guess it's just aliens and zombies.
Ridiculous.
God help you if some undead people show up.
So,
because as we all know, there's a contingent of the population that will just run straight at them and get bitten first to boost their immunity.
Right. Good one. So I'm not all that sad that we're not getting a sequel to Days Gone. I enjoyed it for maybe like 10 hours, and after that I was like, okay, I get it.
I was just sort of like, where are the hordes?
Yeah.
And then I saw one, I'm like, oh, I can't do this yet.
Yeah. You try it and you just get annihilated.
Yeah, you haven't taught me how to do. Okay, and then I'm like, that's how long in? No, we're not. I'm not hanging out with these people.
Yeah, I mean, it was like
long.
15 hours in before you could manage.
It was like 2/3 of the game through.
Yeah, and that was what they marketed the whole damn thing on, was the zombie.
That was
hordes.
their vertical slice demo.
Yeah.
It was like that whole thing in the sawmill or whatever. I was like, that's crazy.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm sorry if you guys are fans of Days Gone.
Meanwhile, it just became like that whole game. Most of that game I remember as being like, can I get to the next gas station point?
Yeah.
That's all. Like,
Yeah,
if I get to that point, I'll refuel there, and then hopefully some random sound won't make 40 guys run at me and waste all my ammo. It's just so tedious.
Yeah. So yeah, and Matt and I definitely not gonna shed any tears over that. Do you think that Sony Ben's game as a service is gonna be a zombie game?
I don't know.
It might be.
Maybe.
If you think about it, there really aren't a lot of games as a service zombie games. There's like Left 4 Dead and...
Yeah, maybe it'll just be called Nights Here.
Right. It may be. It'll be interesting to see what Sony Ben comes up with next. Who knows when we'll see it.
I would think they would branch completely off of anything related to Days Gone.
They're kind of overdue to show the game.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if we get a look at it here, maybe at the Game Awards before the end of the year or something like that.
It could be.
Yeah. Because, Sony is so sporadic with its state of plays. You really never know when they're coming. And they'll announce it and be like, and it's tomorrow. And you're like, what? Okay.
Well, that was like the last one that leaked because who was the rapper's friend or something?
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And it was like he didn't know. He's like, it's next week. Why wouldn't they have announced it? But like, I'm like, that man works in PR. He doesn't. He knows that you probably want, if you want someone to watch something, you probably tell them it's going to happen less than like 4 days before it happened. Like he basically announced that for them.
He did. Yeah.
Like 8 days before it was going to happen. I'm like, and like he made a good point. Like that is weird, right?
People who don't work in the games industry, they're always confounded by it. They're like, what do you mean you don't tell people like who's working on a game, or you don't want people to know about things?
What do you mean you're laying out the rest of your whole year's schedule and you haven't told anyone you're doing that, and it's like next Wednesday?
Yeah. Like, for other industries, it's asinine. They're like, what are you talking about? That's crazy. You're like, that's
how
just
I
the way
missed
it
stuff.
is.
Like, I didn't even know this Capcom thing happened
Right.
until it happened.
They didn't market it at all. At all. And now you see why. We're going to talk about it here in a little bit. There wasn't a lot of big stuff in it. But
I guess you could make the same argument for that Sony presentation.
Actually, you're right. Yep. Okay, next up, we got some good news this week from Ubisoft.
Yeah.
Yves, the CEO of Ubisoft, shared that one of the big initiatives going forward at the publisher is to create remakes of Assassin's Creed. We've been talking about remaking the first Assassin's Creed here on this show for a good 10 years at this point.
First one needs it.
It definitely needs it.
I love it, but it needs it.
I actually almost booted it up last night just to go back.
I've almost done that a couple. I played that game 5 times.
Have you?
Partly because I wanted to get all the achievements because that was something we did back then.
Yeah.
And the first time I played it, all the Templars glitched. There was a lot of Templar glitching, and one of them was just missing, and so I couldn't get the achievement for that. So to get that, you have to play through the whole game again, up to the last mission, because they don't spawn. You don't get to the areas where they spawn until the final thing. So I did it again. It was. I remember it. I can picture this clear as day. I got into Accra. And actually, I played it again and got all the flags. And then I played it a third time to finally get that Templar achievement. And I got to Accra, and I'm running out of Accra. The last guy I need, he's standing by that fucking treasure chest on the road right outside of Accra. And I'm running towards him, and he looks at me and just sort of sinks into the ground and vanishes, never to be seen again. And I literally messaged my friend who worked on Assassin's Creed 1, and I'm like, what the fuck was that? He's like, oh, he's gone. You got to start over again. I'm like, fuck you! Like, what the... And so I ended up having to play it 2 more times to finally get because another one glitched on me so finally 5 times through I got all of them, and I just instantly turned it off. I just turned it immediately off, and that's how I got 1,000 out of 1,000 on Assassin's Creed 1.
And that's why I never do achievements or trophies.
And I love that I remember being shocked that like the flags didn't get you anything. Like you collect all the flags, you didn't get anything.
And there was
achievements.
like 300 or
there's
something.
There's a lot of them. Yeah, there's tons of them.
Yeah.
And I was like, doesn't unlock anything. He's like, we put those in because it was decided that people were going to want to collect things, but we didn't have anything to unlock with it. It's just, here's some flags. And I'm just like, I mean, you weren't wrong.
Yeah.
But nothing? Like, okay.
Megan Rue, we used to work with us at G4, then I worked with her at MTV Viacom. She's like the world's biggest assassin, and she got every frickin' flag. And I was like, and what did you get for it? And she just looks at me and she walked out of the office.
I had 5 different spreadsheets for this. I had maps. I had a map of everything with the flags marked on it, and I had a list of all the locations they were at, and I had a numbered list of where every flag was. And as I'd find one, I would use like the pen in like the fucking MS Word to scratch off the flag on the map, and then I'd delete it from the one numbered list, and then I'd mark it on the other numbered list to say, so in case I didn't really get that one, I had marked that I thought I got that one, because a couple times I didn't get the right one. And it's just it was work. It was literally work.
They are work. I don't do it. It at all.
It got better in 2. 2, you had like a sensor and they showed up on the map. Since then, you put them on the map and it was fine.
Yeah.
But that first one, oh my god! I think if you just adapt the investigation system from Mirage and slap it into a remake of 1, you got something pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just gonna say it. Like, I think the remake should just be the Ezio collection, the first ones.
You could do that too.
Yeah.
Well, they're already Black. We know Black Flag is getting a remake.
Yeah.
And I think Assassin's Creed 3 Remastered is close enough.
Yeah.
I think that's good enough.
Yeah.
Good enough for that game. But yeah, I think the Ezio's, the first 2, I would definitely like to see fully redone.
Yeah.
I'd like to see the first one fully redone.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's anything.
I mean, these games are now like 17, 18 years old.
Yeah,
2007 was the first one.
First one's 17 this year.
Yeah, that's crazy. Wow, I remember this game. This was one of the for whatever reason, this was the game that game trailers exploded on and with.
I remember that.
So much so that they called us to San Francisco for a meeting with Ubisoft. I've told this story before, where their marketing manager, I'm not going to say his name, floated the idea of us paying them for their trailers. They're like, oh, you guys are generating all this ad revenue off of our trailers, and
I remember. Yeah, I remember.
And we're thinking about maybe we should charge you guys for those, and we just laughed them out of the room. We're like, no one's gonna pay for your trailer, man.
Give me a break.
Yeah, but
trailers are advertising.
But that whole era with this game, it is when game trailers exploded. It went from a young startup site to like, holy crap, this thing's going nuts.
I saw a video yesterday. By a channel called the Cosmonaut Variety Hour, which is usually a movie channel, but he did a video about fighting games and how much he loves fighting games from years ago.
Yeah.
But he mentioned specifically that a game trailer's retrospective on Street Fighter, he hated fighting games growing up because he thought they were too hard and didn't understand them, and a game trailer's retrospective on Street Fighter convinced him to try it again, and now he's like a full-time, he's a full fighting game fan.
Wow, that's awesome, man.
Specifically because he's like, game trailers did this retrospective. He's like, because that's what they did. They did retrospectives and stuff all the time. And I watched this thing and I'm like,
we've put a lot of resources towards those things, and it paid off.
So so all these years later, it
made a difference in someone's life. Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
What we do in life echoes in eternity.
It does.
At least on YouTube.
Yeah. I don't understand why all these other websites aren't doing them. Like, if I could afford to do them, we would be doing them. They earn forever.
I've been at a couple of places in the last 10 years since G4 where I pitched stuff like that, and I made a couple things like that, and just nobody gave a shit.
There are a lot of work.
I don't mean the audience, because most of it never made it to
the audience.
To the audience, it was just nobody internally understood why anybody would want to watch this. I'm like, I don't know, but if you look at YouTube, that's what sells.
And they earn forever. They're evergreen.
There's a 12-hour retrospective on Fallout. And it's got like 3 million views.
Yep.
And you know how much of a YouTube video you have to watch to get that to count as a view? Like, these people aren't. It's just not from 2 million people clicking on this and leaving. Yeah. Somebody watched 9 hours
Chunks
of that
shit.
It.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It was like back when G4 was shutting down, and I was starting to pitch having the host do Twitch streams and just play games live with chat and after hours and stuff, and everybody looked at the idea that you just show game footage with people playing it, just everybody looked at me like I was insane.
Yeah.
And it was and because I was one of the last people who was gamer first, learned to do TV because I was a gamer and they hired me to kind of be that part of the show back in the day.
Yeah.
I was sort of dismissed as well, you love video games. Video games are where you come from. You don't, I'm like, I've worked in TV for 12 years. You think I don't know what you're saying? But I'm saying
got that,
this is the new thing.
As the people who really knew games in television, we always were looked at that way. Yeah. You're the game guy. You're not the TV guy.
Yeah, you think you can just show game footage and people will
Meanwhile,
care.
we were better producers than all of them.
Because people play these for hundreds of hours, and guess what's on the TV the whole time? Game footage.
The game. Yeah. I don't know why IGN doesn't have a team of like 3 or 5 people just creating these. Because again, they earn forever. They are evergreen. You put up your review, it does a bunch of views for the first 3 days, and then it's just a trickle for the rest of the eternity.
I know there's, because I was involved in a couple things like that at one point. I know there was reticence, at least for people who are aware of what's kind of happening in that space in the online world. There was always a reticence of like, well, we're not going to be able to make anything as good as NoClip.
Sure, you can.
And like, well, yeah, true. But I was sort of like, well, NoClip's like the definitive documentary stuff. I was like, yeah, but you can do other things they haven't done. Like,
but
and
it doesn't
doesn't have to. You don't have to go around the world and interview everybody in the world. You can just talk about the game.
But NoClip doesn't really do like a retrospective of Zelda, where it goes back and plays every game and gets all the footage. They just do like, hey, this game's coming out. Let's go document them finishing the game, like the stuff that Keil used to do with Apple or whatever.
Yeah.
What was that called? His series. Finishing the game or something like that.
I don't
Or he'd do
care.
this big program with Apple. But anyway.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. But anyway, like, they don't really do that. Like, I don't know what IGN is thinking with their video department there, but like...
They're not the only ones who had that attitude.
No, you're right. Yeah, it's very interesting. So, anyway.
It's like, if we can't be the best, we're not even going to try. It's just like, well, what if you end up being the best because...
you tried.
Because you tried.
It's funny.
You're never getting a short film made that way,
It's
boys.
the catch-22, right?
Much,
It's a chicken or egg scenario. Yeah. So anyway, Assassin's Creed remakes are on the way. I'm really excited about that. Matt's probably really excited about that. You guys probably
I think
are
we'll
too.
see Black Flag first, sounds like, but...
Yeah. Retro Modern Gamer says gamers with the A as a V on YouTube does good stuff like NoClip.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I've never heard of them, actually.
I've heard it. I've seen some of them.
I'm going to write them down.
Pretty good. And so does People Make Games. People Make Games made one of my favorite gaming documentaries of all time.
Okay.
In fact, that's the documentary. It's like a 2.5-hour documentary on Disco Elysium and the backstory of the people who made it and what happened with all the fuckery behind the scenes and the ownership and all that. Amazing. It's pure human drama. It's like almost as good as the weird shit in Disco Elysium.
You know what actually just occurred to me? IGN now owns all of our retrospectives from game trailers. So maybe it's just like GT already did it. And those are still earning, by the way, tons of views. And maybe IGN's just like, well, they already did it. Like, we got the content, it's on our YouTube channels, and it's earning for us.
You're ascribing a lot of wide thought to a company that I don't know if they do that.
Okay.
Really. But maybe.
It's like the only place I haven't worked in this industry. Literally, I've pretty much worked everywhere but IGN. And the funny part, the irony is, IGN is why I'm in this business. Like the early IGN 64 days with Matt Casamassina and Pear, that's why I'm doing this.
Well, and also like almost all the video stuff there, especially the live event stuff, is done by XG4 people.
Yeah,
like
it's all our crew that used to do live E3 at G4.
Corrado, one of the Attack of the Show producers, just got promoted to VP of live events and live video production stuff.
That seemed like a while ago, actually.
That was his last week.
Oh, really?
Like full VP, like senior VP or something like that.
Oh, good. Congrats.
Like he's way up. He's leadership there now.
Yeah, that's good. So anyway, Assassin's Creed remakes are coming. Hopefully you guys are excited about it. We definitely are. Next up, Mortal Kombat 1. Matt, we were talking off camera before the show started. You watched an esports tournament. You're saying that Mortal Kombat 1 is like dying on the vine competitively.
I was talking about the Evo numbers. The Evo CEO that was this week, and Mortal Kombat did okay. I don't remember how many people signed up, but Evo put their sign-up numbers up yesterday, I think. And I mean, Street Fighter 6 is obviously number one with 2,000 something people, or 4,000.
Yeah, I was gonna say that sounds a little low.
Tekken's right behind them, and then like Mortal Kombat 1 has like 600 something, I think.
It's
the
crazy.
second. It's the second lowest entry, and the lowest one I can't even remember what the lowest one was. Like even Third Strike had over 1,000 people.
Wow.
Now Third Strike's going through a nostalgia boom right now.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
But even Under Night in Birth beat Mortal Kombat.
That's crazy.
And it's MK1's first year in the tournament. Like it's their inaugural year in competition, and it's just like it's like Mortal Kombat always gets lower entry.
Yeah.
It's just never been as
It's not a
popular,
big competitive game. Yeah.
But like this is shocking.
Pretty crazy. Yeah.
Like in addition to already being sort of an underdog in the tournament scene. It feels like the Mortal Kombat like tournament community just doesn't really like this one very much.
Yeah, which is odd because it has like a couple new mechanics, and maybe that's why.
I mean, I don't think the partner mechanic is really very loved.
The cameo mechanic or whatever.
Yeah, and I watched some of the finals on at CEO this weekend, and it did seem like a lot of A lot of General Khan, just dominating. Except if you could get a couple shots in with Molina, I think was somebody
Another
using
one.
a couple.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know the meta on MK1 at all, really.
Yeah.
But like, and it's just interesting. You know, it's interesting to see how Tekken figured it out. Tekken's back when I started going to tournaments at Evos and various things at various tournaments around here. Like, I would hang out with a lot of those pro guys because we did videos with them for G4. It's like I knew Justin Wong and all those guys. And I remember, like, when Tekken would start, like, they'd be like, all right, you guys want to go get dinner? Like, everybody would just... Now, no one would do that.
Tekken was a joke then.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But now, with Tekken 8, everybody's like, was like, no, we're going to stay and watch the Tekken. Like, like it's because they really have turned that game around in terms of being a spectator sport.
Meanwhile, Soul Calibur has completely disappeared.
Yeah, it seems like Namco has decided they have one 3D fighting series and they're going to focus on that.
Yeah.
And they're probably right. Like Tekken's
right
doing
move.
Fine. The lowest entries was 300 something for King of Fighters 15.
Oh, okay.
Which obviously is a little older. It wasn't. They also did a breakdown of countries. Every country was Street Fighter 6 number 1 of the most entries. Tekken 8 the second most, except South Korea and Germany, which had Tekken 8 number 1 and Street Fighter number 2, and what was it? Mexico. And Mexico had King of Fighters at number 2.
Not a surprise. Yeah,
because it's huge.
Big there.
In Central America.
Yeah, it's really big.
For whatever reason, those SNK like modular arcade machines got really good distribution all through Central America and Mexico. And look at what it did. King of Fighters is Mexico's fighting game.
Pretty amazing.
It's actually really cool.
Yeah.
Especially when like they started letting the actual Spanish commentators come in for Evo and stuff.
Yeah.
And I can't understand I grew up in California, so I understand some Spanish, but I can't understand Spanish that fast.
Those guys.
And that excited. But it's just like I guess fun to listen to them just because like the soccer games. Where it's like I don't know what they're saying, but like holy shit, are they into it? It's like you can tell that they're and they switch over the English version, and they've gotten much better, but like I don't understand King of Fighters at all. I've never played that series much, but it's fun to watch. Watch that blow up.
Well, the reason we're talking about Mortal Kombat 1 today is because the old data miners went in and dug into the code in Mortal Kombat 1 and found pretty much the entire lineup of DLC characters that are coming. Matt, you tell me if you think any of these characters will move the needle for Mortal Kombat 1 and maybe help it. So here's a list of characters that are coming. Cyrax, Sector.
None of them will change it.
Noob Saibot, which is Ed Boon's name backwards. The guy
and Tobias.
And Tobias. Ghostface.
Those guys have been there forever.
Yeah.
Funny, when I saw Ghostface the first time, I'm like, Ghostface Killer?
No, which would be awesome.
Put Wu-Tang in the game?
There's no new Def Jam game. Ghostface from the Scream franchise. Conan the Barbarian. I don't know which Conan that might be.
Schwarzenegger.
You think it will be?
Yeah, well, they already got his likeness rights for the Terminator thing before, so I'm sure that'll be... They got a relationship now.
Okay. And... You tease that nicely. T-1000 is another one of the playable characters. You don't think any of those folks will move the needle at all?
No.
I think if there is one, it probably is Ghostface. It's the one that's most out of place, it feels like.
It's T-1000.
Really?
The biggest one of those three is T-1000.
That will move the needle,
100%.
you mean?
100%.
How come?
Because Terminator 2 is one of the most loved action movies of all time.
Yeah.
And everybody loves Robert Patrick. And
yeah.
As long as it looks like Robert Patrick. I just saw a new thing from Robert, him doing an interview about Terminator 2 today. While you were up here, somebody sent it to me. And he was talking about his movement training he did for that and how he learned to walk like a predator and how the animal he studied to do it was an eagle.
Oh.
Like how eagles like stalk their prey in midair, and he's like, when you see me in that, and I'm looking kind of down and looking like that, I'm being an eagle.
Wow!
And I'm like you never think of that, but when he says it, you think of that movie, you're like, oh, absolutely, 100%.
It makes sense.
And he's like, my center of gravity. He's like, I did wushu, so my center of gravity was 4 inches below my navel, and everything else just comes from being grounded like that, and that's how I like stop and start without seeming like I stop and start to walk and run.
Interesting.
And it's just like, well, it worked, sir. Yeah. Well done.
Seriously.
So yeah, if they get his likeness and they kind of do a little thing up like the T-1000's back, if they could put Arnold in again, that would be good too. I mean, he was already in his old Terminator from Dark Fate in the last one.
Now,
it would be a shame to not put Arnold versus T-1000 in this. Really,
it has to happen. Yeah.
I would love it if they just sort of finally like. I don't know. Do sort of an Armageddon. Was that the one they did? The old one, Armageddon?
Yeah, it was one of them.
The one before they rebooted with
I think so, yeah.
Where everyone who'd ever been in Mortal Kombat was in that game.
Yeah.
I would love them to just like collect all the guest characters again. Like Alien, Predator, Terminator, RoboCop, everybody.
It's expensive.
Like Jason, Freddy, like Warner Brothers owns most of these.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Like not Alien and Predator.
Well, I saw
anymore.
today Multiversus is about to get a bunch of characters for Mortal Kombat.
Mm-hmm.
It's also owned by basically the same company, so it's easy to make those deals.
It's funny
happen.
how long it took them to realize that. It's like, oh, wait a minute. We got one
The
of these already. There's Geralt.
Yeah.
They got a publishing deal with that. They could probably make that deal
That's a good
happen.
point.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about Mortal Kombat, though, Matt. It sells so many. Unlike other fighting franchises, it doesn't really rely on having those long DLC sales and all this extra stuff. Like, it doesn't need MK to be a game as a service, is what I'm getting at, for it to be a very successful game financially. So many people buy it just to play the campaign.
Yeah, people are clearly not buying this as a competitive like fighting like tournament game. People buy Mortal Kombat because it has a lot of content with a K and stuff to do. And, people like it as a single player experience with a bunch of career and the story mode, and because the story mode is pretty good.
It is really good, yeah. And the other thing too is it's like it feels like Mortal Kombat is one of those games where it's like a bar. So if you put out a Mortal Kombat, the first one on PS5 and Xbox Series, people want to see that. They want to see what the new Mortal Kombat looks like. How do the fatalities look? How does Sub-Zero look? People remember a lot of stuff from this fighting franchise, and I think with each new entry, they want to see how that stuff looks and works in the new game. So
yeah, I think they've lost something where they were doing the Injustice games for a while, and I think Mortal Kombat benefited from like the time off.
Yeah,
I think it benefited from like going to the Injustice game because they're all the same game.
Yeah,
the fighting system,
different skins.
NetherRealm's fighting systems are pretty similar, and
Yeah.
they don't really change much. But then you get that period where you're playing Injustice 2 for a while, and then when Mortal Kombat showed up, and you go, oh yeah, Mortal Kombat. I'd like to play Mortal Kombat again. I've been playing with superheroes for like 2 years. And so but now it's just sort of just Mortal Kombat on top of Mortal Kombat, and it's like. I already have one of those. I just did that. It feels like even if you didn't just do it, it was years ago, but it still feels like you just did it.
No, you're right. It was better when they had that kind of off and on.
Yeah, honestly, the only thing that really interested me about the new MK1 when it came out was like, what are you doing with the story now that you basically rebooted the universe in the last one?
I wanted to check out the cameo
and
stuff.
That indeed was interesting. Well, the cameo stuff wasn't very present in the launch. The cameo stuff always comes, and also the cameo stuff in the last one was so good. That's a hard...
No, I'm talking about the actual cameo characters, the assist charcharacters that come in.
Yeah, I don't really like that very much. I've never...
It changes the franchise, for sure.
It does, but I also don't really like using existing characters that are not in the game as assists. I've never liked that. I didn't like it in the old Marvel games.
Smash does it, too.
Smash as well. It's like, because it just feels like teasing.
Yeah.
It's like, I was always annoyed that, like, in the old Marvel versus games, there was like an assist from like Jubilee.
Right. You're like, I want to play as Jubilee.
Like, why can't I play them? Like, why isn't there? It was like, why can't I be them? You know? I prefer a tag game where the assists are your other teammates,
and you actually play as those tags. Yeah.
Like, I mean, that stuff has annoyed me since Mortal Kombat 2, where they just chained up Kano and Sonya in the background of Shao Kahn's like throne arena thing. Yeah. Where it turned out, and everybody thought you could unlock them, but it's like, and it turned out they just did that because they were the two least picked characters in the first game.
Yep, data. Silksnake says, just to make a guest game, I'd rather have that, but IP would probably cost a fortune. Yeah, I mean, you start licensing all this stuff, man. It adds up. And
that's basically what Multiverses is, right? You're leaning into the IPs that Warner Brothers already owns. I mean, if you take Multiverses and all those IPs and just make Mortal Kombat with them, that would probably do better than Multiverses.
Well, the crazy thing is that Silkshank just segued perfectly into the next topic of our housekeeping, which is a licensing issue. Forza Horizon 4 is already going to be delisted, Matt, in December. And people may say, well, who cares because there's a Forza Horizon 5. Well, you do care because the big difference in these games are the setting.
Well, how old is 4 now? Is it?
I mean, it's 3-4 years old.
When did 5 come out? 2 years ago?
2 years ago, yeah. And they used to be on the every other year schedule, so yeah.
So 4's 4 years old now.
Yeah. I mean, and again, it's because of the licensing.
Yeah. When is it delisting?
In December.
Interesting. So that usually those licenses are 5 years, so that was a little less than that.
Yeah. Or they're just getting out from under it early to...
Yeah, that could be. I mean, that's sort of the nature. I mean, it's not like you're not going to be able to still play it if you own it.
Yeah, you need to get it, basically.
Yeah, you need to pick everything up for that if you want it.
Because once it's gone in December, you'll never be able to get it again.
Yeah. That's the nature of these licensed games. Any licensed games. Although, those Transformers games coming back. I don't know if you saw that.
I didn't see that. No.
They aren't for sale yet, but the Transformers, the Fall Cybertron and War for Cybertron game, their game pages came back.
Whoa.
You can't download, you can't buy them, but they're back. And so people are saying like, oh, that must mean that they're going to bring them back. Because look, those games of all games, it makes sense to bring back for that movie that's coming out in September, because that movie is about the outbreak of the war.
Yeah.
So if you want to cash in on that, like those games are custom made to do that, and they're more G1 appropriate. But like, so it's not always. Sometimes if you buy, I mean, if Microsoft ends up buying every car company, you could see Forza Horizon 4 come back one day. But
which is actually possible.
And to be fair, the reason the Transformers games are coming back is Hasbro has been bugging Activision to do it for years, and they were never able to get any traction until Microsoft bought them and was like, "Oh yeah, sure, we'll do that. We like money." You know, it's like I don't know why Activision being so weird about that, but it's just the nature of the beast. For a long time, those games are going for hundreds of dollars in physical.
Yeah.
Go look up how much that PS4 Godzilla game costs.
Yeah.
Like licensed stuff is like that.
I think it brings up the question if the licensing is worth it, because you can. Yes. I'm guessing they have data that says, okay, if we license songs and stuff for this game, we'll get X more sales. But
it's not the song.
It crushes the tail. With the cars,
it's
the vehicles. Yeah, I'm just talking about licensing in general, not just racing games.
I don't know about that. I mean, the song stuff you can usually, the licensing is usually like, we can use this in this work for perpetuity. Like song licensing tends to.
It seems like in films that's the case, but not in games.
Maybe not in games, but it's definitely the case in film. Like, you're never going to not be able to re-release a film because you don't have the rights to like.
The soundtrack.
I mean, it happens in TV shows. Like there's
they swap out songs. Yeah.
Like,
for kept
Quantum
tracks.
Leap had a big problem with that.
Yeah.
What was the? Oh.
I mean, they can do the same thing in games. They can get rid of the licensed music and replace it with stuff that their studio makes.
But like, it depends what if the licensed music was like important, then I mean, they just took out a couple songs from GTA San Andreas and everybody lost their damn minds.
Well, that's a good point, though, because Grand Theft Auto does not license its cars, and it does fine.
Yeah, but the point isn't the cars. The point of this is the cars.
Yeah.
Like, no one, Forza not having real cars would be it's ridiculous.
Forza Motorsport, yes. Forza Horizon, less so.
No, this too. I would not buy this if it wasn't real cars.
Really?
100%.
I still would.
Never. That's just the crew.
Interesting. I would.
No. It has to be the real cars. The real cars are part of it.
It's part of it, but it wouldn't keep me from playing because I love this franchise. Like, if they said Forza Horizon 6 wouldn't have licensed vehicles, but it would be like GTA where you kind of know what they are without the name on them.
That would be the end of Forza Horizon.
You think so?
100%.
Wow. I'm surprised to hear you say that.
Not a question. I would never touch it without real cars.
Wow.
Never.
I really don't care that much, honestly. I mean, I like to be able to drive my car or whatever in driving games, but...
Yeah. But the part of the point is that it's all fantasy stuff with real cars.
Don't you think it's funny that Rockstar, even though the cars aren't licensed, still makes a huge deal about the cars? Also, I would add, sells those unlicensed cars in GTA Online for huge sums of money. Well, and the fans gobble it up.
Right, but it's not because of their fake Ferraris. It's because they can do stuff. It's their performance. It's because having that one fake McLaren means you can outrun literally everything. Mm-hmm. It's pay to win.
Yeah,
I mean, it's more pay to win than we want like fake Lamborghinis. And
I don't think it's that they want fake Lamborghinis. I think it's that they just don't care that it's a fake Lamborghini.
Well, no, they don't care about what it is. They care about the performance. They want to win. They want to kill people in the most obnoxious way possible.
Yeah.
Same reason the jetpack sells, or the jet cycle, or whatever that is. Right. People use to fly under underpasses and ram people.
Mm-hmm.
GTA doesn't matter because it's all satire and parody, and it's just like, it's never
fake cars kind of fit in.
Yeah, it's, like,
it's kind of a part of the aesthetic.
And now, and at the time, it was just like no one would ever have licensed something that was like that raunchy and violent, and nobody would want to be associated with that. And then by the time they would have, I mean, nowadays you probably could get real licenses for GTA.
Yeah,
I would think, but
I mean, there's a chance that GTA 6 has them.
No, there isn't.
No?
Because Rockstar is not going to spend that kind of money and answer to anybody over that. And also, I would argue that at this point, 20-some years later, the fake cars in GTA are as iconic as real cars.
Some of them for sure. Yeah.
Like, everybody knows what the Infernus is.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've played GTA, you know what an Infernus is and all those.
There's like a handful of cars that everybody remembers from that franchise.
Probably need to change the name of the Vespa.
Oh, yeah. What's that called again?
It's a slur.
Yeah. But they probably won't.
Yeah, Rockstar probably won't do. You're right. Yeah, you're right.
So anyway, look, if you I can't remember, where did Forza Horizon 4 take place? Was it Australia?
That sounds right.
Is that right? Or is the last game Australia?
I thought the last game was Mexico.
I think you're right. Yeah. So if you want to be able to drive in this very specific territory with Forza Horizon, you need to pick this game up before December.
Yeah.
And I guess it'll also disappear off of Game Pass too. Will it?
4 was England. That's right.
4 was England?
4 was England. Because the third one was Australia. The second one was some kind of Mediterranean place. And the first one was Colorado.
Yeah. With the music festival. Well, they all do music festivals.
They're all some kind of weird ass.
Yeah.
They're all something I would not want to be at in real life. That's for sure.
Pretty much. But anyway, if you're interested in playing this game in the territory that it's set in, you need to make sure you snag it. What do you think about Game Pass? Is it going to go off? I guess it needs to because of the licensing.
Everything.
Yeah. So
if you want to play Forza Horizon 4 again, you're going to need to buy it.
Yeah. Yeah. So there you go. Just a heads up. If you're interested in Forza Horizon 4, you should pick it up before it's gone for good. Next up. Finally seeing some of Pachter's predictions for Game Pass starting to come to fruition in the market. This week it was announced that Amazon has partnered with Game Pass for a Fire Stick that will allow you to play Game Pass on your TV without a console. Initial reports have said that works very well. The last couple weeks, a couple different outlets that we've curated on SIFTD have done reports where they've got a Samsung TV with Game Pass built into it and tried it. And pretty much all the reports have said that it's way better than they expected, and they couldn't believe it, and they could actually maybe see themselves someday being able to deal with playing it on a TV, and the built-in hardware on the TV.
Because what? It's streaming?
Yes. Well, yeah. I think it's streaming. I don't know if the Samsung TVs have HDs, actually, if they have hard drives. I don't know. My guess is no. It probably is just streaming through Game Pass.
That would have to be contained on the Fire Stick.
Yeah. Now, granted, I don't think most of these people tried to play Call of Duty multiplayer competitively, or a fighting game competitively, or probably a driving game competitively. But I think playing single player, they said, like, wow, this actually works better than we thought, and we could actually see ourselves maybe someday, if this was the only option, surviving with it, so to speak.
But it won't, and it won't be, so who cares?
Yeah.
Most people will never even know that exists.
What about the Fire Stick stuff, though? I mean,
most people will never even know that exists.
But if it's Amazon and they have a big marketing plan set up with it, because look, this is Xbox's future.
Sure.
Like, it's incentivized to make this stuff work. So
I mean, it's something for people who would dabble in one game a year or something. I think. Like, there's no reality where someone has this giant super duper TV, is interested in video games, but refuses to buy a console.
Yeah.
Like, we've been over
this
over and over again.
$2,000 for a TV, you're gonna buy a console for $500.
This is like a Fire Stick is like, the Fire Stick thing is like somebody who doesn't really play video games, but like isn't against it, and finds out about Little Kitty Big City and decides they want to play that. And like, it's the easiest way to do that is, you can do that right now. Just borrow my controller, because you don't own a controller, because you don't own a console for some. It'd be like, did you go out and buy a controller, an $80 controller?
I mean, they should probably bundle the controller with the Fire Stick.
Then the Fire Stick costs like $200.
Right. And then you might as well just buy a console. Well, I think a Fire Stick's actually like $50 or something, but
it's just like, there's a point at which, like, if someone's that interested in it, they're probably going to buy hardware.
Yeah.
And if they buy hardware, as we know, they're probably going to buy a PS5.
Yeah. That's absolutely true. Yeah.
Or a Switch 2.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Pachter has ever said that it's the core people or the ones who are going to jump on board this. He says that, like, what Game Pass needs to get where Microsoft wants it to go are the people you're talking about.
Well, what's the revenue share on that? So do you have to subscribe to Game Pass separately?
Yes, you would have to, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you still have to subscribe to Game Pass. You don't get Game Pass free on a Samsung TV.
But through the Fire Stick?
I don't know, actually. That's a good question. I don't think they answered that yet. I don't think that's a part of it.
That would be kind of my first question. Like,
yeah,
if I'm
that's
Amazon,
kind of a deal breaker.
If I buy the Fire Stick and I have Amazon Prime on the Fire Stick, do I have to pay a separate fee for Game Pass?
My guess is yes.
Probably, but like that's a barrier. You've paid 3 times at that point to play.
And if you're talking about casual people,
yeah,
they're the ones who sit there and count the times they paid.
Yeah, and you need a controller,
right?
And controllers cost $80 now.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
yeah. I mean, I don't see our crew ever, and Sifters
definitely
are not going to buy into
That
it.
was never a question. What I'm saying is, like, who is this
magical,
dabbly casual person who is willing to spend $300 to play something they don't care about enough to actually buy? It's just, I don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of agree with you.
It's sort of the equivalent of having to plug a wire of the VR headset in.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's by the time you actually hit the rubber meets the road, you're like, I think you've gone through too many hoops for the person you're talking about to stick with it.
Yeah. To be fair, though, if they do hit just like 1% penetration of people who have 4K TVs,
yeah, it's something.
That's pretty good. So you don't need even all that many of the casuals to join
an extra
in.
100,000 subscribers for how many
adds
a month?
up fast.
It adds up.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see if
God, what a small payoff for having a deal with Amazon.
Seriously. It'll be interesting to see, though, if this strategy does pay off, because this really is kind of like the make or break for Game Pass, I feel like. As far as hitting that critical mass number where you're talking about like 50 to 100 million subscribers
like the point where you don't have to worry about anything anymore.
And it's just, you're on easy stream
Or maybe
now.
you don't have to close Tango GameWorks anymore.
Exactly. That's a good way to put it. So, anyway, just something to keep in mind. I know our audience would never, ever buy a TV and play Game Pass and have that be their sole way to play video games. But for other people, maybe it's a little more inviting. And then our final story for today's housekeeping is a game I actually am wondering how much you care about, Matt. And that is Star Wars Bounty Hunter. It is being revived. It's coming to all modern platforms. They're adding in Boba Fett. And it launches on August 1st, 2024.
How are they doing that?
I don't know. They're doing work, I guess, on the game.
They're just going to
toss him in as a playable character, I would guess.
Just give him his armor, basically?
Probably. I mean, it's probably just a cosmetic
armor.
change. Yeah, that'd be my guess. This game was never that popular when it came out in, 2002? Is that right?
Yeah, it was right around episode 2.
Yeah. It never really hit critical mass.
No,
it came out for GameCube and PS2.
Because it wasn't very good.
Yeah.
It was
oh, actually, that's what I want to hear, is what your opinion is on this game.
Very difficult to control properly. It was trying to do a lot of stuff. Like, it was like the idea is good, like just bounty hunter simulator, basically. Mm-hmm. And you had all these different abilities, you had all these different weapons. Like, the levels were kind of interesting. The bounty chasing was cool, but like, it just didn't control very well. Mm-hmm. It was in that infancy of 3D adventure action stuff where like everybody kind of had their own approach, and the camera didn't quite know what to do. Like, there's a good game in here somewhere. Like, I'm interested if like this remaster, whatever they're doing with this, like actually manages to have if you modernize the controls enough, you might have something here.
Yeah.
Especially now that there's more buttons on the controller. That was part of the problem. Was switching between stuff was tough on the GameCube. I played on the GameCube, and it was
got your big ass A button.
Yeah,
there
had
the
that big ass
beams
forehead.
around it.
It's and it isn't. I'm always the one thing that I think is interesting, and this comes from partly like dealing with like younger fans of Star Wars who don't remember these things, and dipshits who are trying to get in on the grifting and haven't actually seen enough Star Wars to have the conversation. Those are my favorites.
I bet.
Complaining
the
about
know-nothing grifters.
Oh,
Matt's
now there's a metal that can break lightsabers. Yeah, it's called Cortosis. It's been around since 1995, dipshit. That's the old canon you guys are always whining about how it doesn't exist anymore. They brought it in, they used it. The woman who makes the Acolyte is one of the biggest EU fans I've ever run into. And, like, that's why that whole show feels like a weird EU comic. Like, that's the most EU feeling, it's the most expanded universe feeling show they've done in the modern Star Wars era, and they hate it anyway because girl.
Do you like it, Acolyte?
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's perfect. I don't think it's amazing.
Yeah, it hasn't got great reviews.
Well, because it's been review bombed to hell and back.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
The critics' reviews are like 80.
Oh, okay.
They're fine. It's entirely.
I haven't watched any of it yet.
It's pretty good. But again, I have a lot of actual criticisms for it that I've never seen the chuds actually bring up. They all just say bad writing, which is just code for there's a girl or a white person
or a minority. Yeah.
There are actually some things to discuss about Acolyte's failings. The last episode was really good. They brought in a bunch of crazy stuff that's a super huge spoiler that I'm not going to tell you about, but I will say some of the best,
I saw some rumblings on it.
Some of the best probably the best lightsaber combat in live action since episode 3.
Wow.
All that stuff. But again, it's a mystery. It's a mystery, like a murder mystery to some degree. And so, as with any murder mystery, they're going to have to stick the landing. Like, I'm reserving judgment till it's over, because if they don't stick the landing, the whole thing kind of falls apart.
Yeah.
So I'm enjoying it. It's not Andor, but nothing is.
Yeah.
Because
I love Andor.
Andor is one of the best Star Wars things ever.
Yeah.
It's weird that episode 5 of Star Wars things tends to be the best one. Isn't that weird? Like,
it is.
Like episode 5 of this, episode 5 of Obi-Wan, episode 5 of Ahsoka, episode 5 of Mandalorian season 2.
Yeah. Why is that?
Episode 5 of the movies is Empire.
Yeah,
so it's like what is that?
What's going on there?
It's that big, like, all this lost moment that really makes Star Wars, like right in the middle of the story.
Yeah.
But one of the things I always notice is like, the eras, because they're so short-lived, the eras between the prequels, when all the prequels weren't out yet, and we didn't have all the info yet. The most fascinating parts of Star Wars are there, because a lot of the kids were too young to really know the discourse or understand what was happening or really realize what was going on. And the people who were adults at the time, a lot of them were just hating the prequels. I never hated the prequels. They're not amazing, but I don't like Episode 2. I think it's the second worst Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
But I thought it was the worst until Rise of Skywalker came out. Then I was like, oh wow, you somehow
did that.
The barrel had a false bottom, and you found a secret hatch that led to an underground tunnel that opened up into the Rise of Skywalker. Well done. But the people forget that, like, before Episode 2, there was no rule about what color saber anybody used.
Yeah.
Red. If you look at the Dark Horse comic books from before that, the Jedi Council had red sabers.
Yeah.
And
it wasn't
so
the bad guy.
This thing, which is set in Episode 2 before Episode 3 existed yet, like, that's I always find that a fascinating glimpse into that sort of incomplete universe before we knew what was going to happen in 3, before Lucas told anybody where any of that was going.
Yeah.
And this was being worked on in the run-up to Episode. This wasn't like a Clone Wars sort of project. It was being worked on in the run-up as a preparation for Episode 2. So really the only thing anybody knew was Episode 1 at this point, and whatever tiny breadcrumbs he was willing to give the dev team while they were... we have to know what his name is because we have to make the game. Okay, his name is Jango Fett. Whatever.
Yeah.
So I find these games that are... It's Clone Wars as well to some degree, the one that just came out in a kind of a half-assed remastered version on PlayStation. These little snippets of, like, when we didn't know the whole prequel trilogy.
Yeah.
And sort of the interpretations people had to make because A, George wouldn't tell you anything, and B, he didn't know.
Yeah.
He
was making it up as he went along.
Absolutely. He's always making it up as you went along. And if you don't agree with me, you're wrong, because you wouldn't have the brother and sister kiss each other in the second movie if you knew that's what you were going to do with those characters.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. So anyway, Star Wars Bounty Hunter coming out August 1st. It's coming to everything, even Switch.
Yeah,
it's
everywhere.
One of those games that even gets a Switch version, and obviously it should be able to run fine on Switch. Neither Matt nor I think it was a great game back when it came out.
I'll play it. I'm curious to see what they do. I mean, again, you're gonna remaster this, and you're not gonna put out the Rogue Squadrons,
right? Yeah.
You're gonna remaster this, and you're gonna drag your feet on the KOTOR remake.
My guess is Nintendo is the problem with the Rogue Squadrons.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wants it probably for itself and hasn't presented.
Well,
a plan.
maybe you should have put it on the Wii, assholes.
When it was done. Yeah.
Like I'm baffled by that. I mean, a Rogue Squadron collection of the 3 of them and Battle for Naboo.
No brainer. Yep, would have done
Chef's
great.
kiss.
Still will do great if they release it now.
For that matter, where's our modern versions of TIE Fighter and X-Wing?
Yeah.
I think that would sell too.
I don't think that'll ever happen.
Probably not. Well, it actually has happened because the fans made them.
Oh, right. Yeah.
TIE Fighter Total Conversion mod, you got a copy of X-Wing Alliance. It's like playing a modern game.
Yeah.
Highly recommended.
Yep. Well, there you go. That's our housekeeping for GameFace 393. We have a great rest of the episode for you guys. We're going to tackle some big games that just came out this week. But before that, here's a word from our sponsor, LS Cream, and an updated word from our sponsor, LS Cream.
Hey everyone, Steven's here from LS Cream. I hope that everybody's doing well. Guys, if you've heard Shane talk about it a little bit, about all the situation in Pennsylvania, getting LS Cream into that, basically you quickly understand that the liquor industry, it's kind of difficult to navigate in. Right now, we've been put in a situation where one of our distributors has basically kept all of our money. That was not obviously part of the plan. We basically started an Indiegogo campaign to overcome that situation. Basically, we'll be able to ship you a bottle of LS Cream regardless of where you are. A lot of people in the comments during GameFace, they say about having LS Cream in Europe. So this is your chance to actually get a bottle of LS Cream using that campaign. So first of all, I want to thank every one of you that supported LS Cream since the beginning that we've been sponsoring GameFace, and for now, I really hope that you guys are gonna go and support us. And thank you so much. We are not backing down. We deserve a shot. This industry is kind of corrupt, but we're trying to make a difference. Thank you so much for your help, and I'll see you soon.
So there you go. I mentioned it in last week's episode, but we didn't have the new ad to run yet. But yeah, they need help with distribution in the United States. As he brings up, like, I can't buy LS Cream in my home state of Pennsylvania, which is just crazy and a shame, honestly, because people everywhere should be able to drink the deliciousness that is LS Cream. As he said, go to Indiegogo.com, search for LS Cream. We will provide the link to people in the description of the YouTube video, like we did last week, so you guys can go and support. But one thing that he wanted me to mention to you guys is the only way you can get a Cray Mash shirt is if you go to that Indiegogo.
Yeah.
Seriously. Now, he has not accepted my pitch of a Cray Mash Dad Ass t-shirt. I can't imagine why, Matt, he wouldn't want it. In a million years, why he wouldn't. So you can't quite get that there, but you can get a Cray Mash shirt there. And again, like, you know, I feel like his ad kind of says it all, and I like that ad because it speaks directly to you guys. And you can see how an awesome dude he is, and you can see the response to people who drink LS Cream. It is an amazing liqueur. We swear by it here on GameFace. And honestly, this Indiegogo could make a huge difference for LS Cream. Let's make it so any bar you go to anywhere in America, you walk up, you ask for LS Cream, you can get it. So go to the Indiegogo, support if you can. If you can't support on the Indiegogo, you can still go to that old URL, creamls.com/sifted. And if you go there, you can find store locators and places to get it if they're not selling LS Cream yet in your state. And there's a chance that there isn't because of the issues that he's had with distribution. So Stevens Charles is an awesome guy. LS Cream is an awesome drink. Support them if you can. Again, go to Indiegogo.com, search for LS Cream, and you'll find the whole program there, hoping to help with distribution for LS Cream throughout the United States of America. And as always, a big thanks to LS Cream for sponsoring GameFace. It makes a huge difference for us, and we love the drink and the people at LS Cream very, very much. And with that, it's time to get on with the bulk of GameFace 393, and I just selected the wrong lower third, because first we're going to talk about Capcom Next. Yesterday, Capcom put up its own form of its Nintendo Direct, pre-produced, just a video that runs. It's not live or anything like that. And it really was kind of supposed to be Capcom's not E3 press conference, so to speak.
But they wisely separated it.
They
from
sure did.
else, and
and now we know why. So they gave themselves a week or two, actually, from not E3 to run their thing. And I think you're right, Matt. I think it probably was intentional. I think it wanted a little bit of separation there because, in all honesty, Capcom did not have a ton of stuff to show. Definitely, the biggest thing that was at least discussed in the event was the next Resident Evil 9. The producer of Resident Evil 9 is the producer who was on Resident Evil 7, and that's kind of how Capcom rolls. It has a couple of different producers that works on the franchise, and they take turns making the games. So the person who made Resident Evil Village, they now have a little bit of a layoff as they're working on their next game, and now the producer who worked on Resident Evil 7, it's his turn with Resident Evil 9. And they didn't really share a whole lot about Resident Evil 9, other than he said it was very difficult to come up with the concept for it after working on Resident Evil 7. And the only thing that he shared is that there will be a significant change to the franchise, that they found a significant change to the franchise. And I think that all lends into all the rumors we've been hearing already that Resident Evil 9 is going to be an open world game, which does present like all kinds of crazy scenarios and questions about it.
I would imagine that would be very difficult.
Yeah. I mean, this game is built on that room-by-room design. It has been all along.
I mean, it's in the title, Resident.
Right. That's a good point, actually. The one thing I do like, though, Matt, is that Resident Evil 7, it's with the bakers and everything. And I do feel like it was more straight horror. They made attempts at making it scary. It wasn't so much like tongue-in-cheek. Like some of the other Resident Evil games are. So I
Until Chris Redfield shows up.
Right.
It's like
yeah.
It all goes out the window.
Till Leon punches a boulder. But anyway, I have a feeling that it's going to be a lot higher on suspense and horror than the last game was. And doing that in the open world, though, again, presents a bunch of new challenges. So I'm pretty excited to see where the game is headed. Even if it falls on its face, it'll be interesting to play a first ever open world Resident Evil game. And there may only be one, because it may be a complete disaster that the fans reject. Because, let's be honest, Matt, the remakes of the old ones are selling better than the new ones. Like, the remake of Resident Evil 2 has outsold the modern Resident Evil games.
Right. But I wonder how much of that is because the attachment to the old characters and the and not being first person.
Yeah. And the mansion and the setting and all that stuff that goes along with it.
I think there's room to branch out into an open world idea, but I think you need to do it kind of like an Arkham Asylum thing, or not Arkham City thing, where you've got an open world, but like the open world contains basically what we
dungeons,
little mini Resident Evils,
yeah,
just a bunch of little
buildings,
overcomplicated mansions and police stations everywhere. Yeah. That'd be kind of what I'd go with it.
Yeah, I mean that could work actually. And you get out on the street, and there's some zombies out in the street or whatever.
That's the other thing. It's like I remember back when Resident Evil 2 first came out, one of the things people complained about was you didn't get to spend enough time in the street, like doing stuff with the big zombie outbreak.
Yeah,
and you could do that now. You could show, you could show the full Raccoon City outbreak now if you wanted to. Like, if you wanted to have that be sort of what you run around, you got to go into different buildings and do different. It doesn't have to be. I assume it'll star Ethan again or whatever, or his daughter.
His daughter, it should. Yeah.
So who knows where they're going to do it?
Yeah. So it's not Raccoon City.
No.
Although it probably should be.
It's just an example.
I mean, I feel like the first open world Resident Evil probably should be set in Raccoon City. It would be cool
to let you run around at Raccoon, but Raccoon City's gone.
Right.
So they nuked it. Right.
Yeah.
So probably not going to be that.
It could be. But to your point, it's going to continue the story from this game, which means yes, it's going to be Ethan's daughter who should be the primary protagonist in the game. It's exciting to find out what the future of Resident Evil is going to be. I haven't been this excited for a Resident Evil reveal for a really long time. How do you feel about them just having the producer sit down in a chair and say, yeah, we're making our Resident Evil 9. You know that already. And we're not going to tell you anything about it. But yeah, we're making Resident Evil 9.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, I'll worry about it when it's here.
Yeah. It seemed a little, it felt like it was just kind of jammed in at the end.
It seems like they were doing this thing and
they needed something.
You needed to mention it. Because everybody knows, so you gotta address it somehow, and they did.
I feel like they needed something for this Capcom Next.
I'm a little surprised they didn't show like a logo or something.
Because there's a bunch of games that like Capcom is working on that didn't show up, like Pragmata. That game, I mean, we should have seen a 10-minute gameplay chunk for that game. Honestly.
Who knows what's happening with that thing?
And then they showed.
I mean, that little apology note trailer really did seem to indicate that it's gonna be a while.
Yeah.
Like there was no time frame on that.
Yeah, and then they show Monster Hunter Wilds in everybody else's show during Not E3, and then Capcom doesn't show it in its own Not E3
I mean,
show.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a bunch of it, but Capcom could have kept something really cool just for its presentation, but it didn't. It wasn't even in the show at all, and again, that game's coming in 2025, so there's a way to go. So Resident Evil 9 was the big headline for this, but actually the game that took up the bulk of the time in the presentation is a revival of Dead Rising.
Yeah.
A remaster of the game from 2006. It's coming out on September 19th digitally, and then there's a physical version coming out in November that you have to wait for if you want the physical version. It's going to run at 4K, 60 frames per second. It now has brand new real-time lighting that changes with the time of day. They've also worked on the gameplay. It's going to include the ability to move while aiming, which, okay, definitely should include that. It's going to have an autosave feature. Remember, saving was a big deal in this game.
Because like the timer went weird and you had to get certain places.
It was kind of annoying, in all honesty.
It was very annoying.
Yeah, I'm glad that they're changing that. It's going to have an updated UI, and they're going to improve the behavior of NPCs. And then they're calling it Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster. It's coming for PlayStation.
They call it DRDR.
Yep. It's coming to more acronyms.
Doctor.
It's better than DSDS.
Yeah.
It's coming again on September 19th to PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, and PC. So no Switch version, even though this game is from 2006.
Yeah,
but it's 4K.
Looking at what they're doing with this, I don't know if the Switch could really do that at a decent
all those
clip.
Zombies, and it definitely couldn't run it in 4K. That's for damn sure.
Well, no, yeah.
Maybe they could get away with 1080p or something. How do you feel about this game all these years later, Matt?
I don't really.
I have like bad feelings about it, honestly.
It was interesting for its time, but the timer sort of run out of time and you can't do this thing, so it affects the end of the game. Like that was mostly annoying to me.
Like watching this B-roll, it brings up a lot of bad memories for me.
Yeah, because I don't like timers anyway. This game is one big timer.
It is, yeah.
With little timers inside of it.
In the middle of it, yeah.
Also, the psychopaths are mostly offensive stereotypes.
There's the clown.
Well, not the clown, but like there's like a giant, fat lesbian cop or something.
Right.
Like, I don't think that plays now. I don't like. There's a.
My guess is those are some of the NPC tweaks that they're going to make, maybe.
One hopes.
But you may be right.
There's a lot of broad stereotypes in this game that I don't think would play today.
Yeah. Again, this is from 2006, and this game is all about that. I mean, that's what it's really all about. Is just stereotypes in comedy, like
they're
from
kind
parody.
of trying to do like a parody of America, like how GTA
It's
does.
like GTA,
but they're not really pulling it off.
Yeah, because it was made in Japan.
Partly, but also because there's already a mall-based parody of American life. It's called Dawn of the Dead.
Dawn of the Dead.
And you're not going to do it better than that.
No.
So. And like obviously this was kind of technically impressive at the time because of how many zombies were on screen and all the different ways you could kill them and stuff. But between this and Dead Rising 2, like I played my Dead Rising.
Yeah.
I did my time with this franchise. 3 was interesting, but a really weird choice for a launch exclusive for the Xbone.
Yeah.
I did like that the main character in that was like weirdly emotionally intelligent for a video game.
Oh, yeah.
Main character.
Yeah.
Like I was actually a pretty likable dude.
Yeah.
And then 4, I don't even really remember.
I don't either.
What
I
that
don't think I played 4.
Maybe I didn't.
I don't
play
think I
4.
ever played it.
Or maybe I didn't.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
I don't think we covered it on GameFace either. I think that was like right when the site launched, I think,
Yeah.
when that came out.
I don't remember.
Yeah. I don't remember it either because I don't think I played it. And that's because I had gotten enough from the first 3 games. It's a little odd that Capcom has dedicated so much resources to this. I mean, it sold okay when it came out.
It's like, you made this and you didn't do Dino Crisis?
Right.
Like, what are you doing? Like, who wants this?
Well, yesterday was the 25th anniversary of Dino Crisis, and Capcom did post something on its official account, but nothing about making a new game. It's just like an image they posted of a dinosaur's bloody foot, and that was like it. And so some people obviously are like, oh my gosh, a new Dino Crisis is coming. The smart people know that is absolutely not going to happen.
No.
But yeah, it's like, again, watching the trailers of this and the B-roll of this, it just brought back bad memories of like trying to rescue people and then being so slow and like having to rely on their path trace like to make sure that they would walk back and they get stuck on like.
And you're on a timer, so every time the AI fucks up, you're
like, oh gosh,
now we're not going to make it.
Yeah, like I don't know.
We did an all achievement run of that. Back in the day, that was like my online group. Like we would play out for like 100,000 achievements to help each other get achievements and stuff. This is one of the only ones that I just bailed out. I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah,
it sucks. I hate it.
Yep, I didn't miss it. And now it's coming back, and it's like, well, how could I be excited for it coming back if I never missed it in the first place? So
he's covered wars,
What?
He's covered wars,
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That's the other thing that's kind of annoying about it. The photography thing is like, oh, cool, but then you actually start doing it, and you're like, this isn't actually all that cool.
No, it's pretty. Just take a picture of as many like big crowd as you can, and hope that someone's doing something weird.
Yeah.
And then you want to take pictures of the bosses doing crazy. There's all the different like individual Basically, it was like, look at all our custom animations.
Pretty much.
Take pictures of all our animations.
Yeah, that's what it was. But again, that is coming September 19th. So they announced it, and a few months later, here it is. Again, for PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. What about somebody who wasn't really into games back in 2006? Would you recommend that they consider it?
Not real. I mean, honestly, just go play Days Gone.
Yeah. I mean, it is kind of a snapshot of a moment in time.
It is.
And there's really no other game like it, but still, it's hard for me to recommend.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I would say go play 4, probably.
Yeah, one of the newer ones.
They did refine the concept better as they went on,
yeah.
I would imagine.
Like, they ditched the timer after the first one, right?
No, it was still there,
Was it in the second one?
Yeah, it just wasn't as punishing.
They nerfed it, though, I think.
Yeah, and I think you could play without it if you wanted to.
Yeah, I think so.
But the same stuff didn't happen or something like that.
Yeah.
And then there was a 3, I think, didn't have
when they got rid of it, I think.
time. There was no timer for everything, because that's the thing is like every single side quest in that game has a timer that counts down, and if you miss it, you miss it, and like you literally can't do everything.
Yeah, it's impossible.
And there's certain particular things that will only happen if you do this side quest, then this one, and that one, and that one, and then this thing happens, and there's an achievement for that, and you won't get a different ending unless you do that. It's like the perfect kind of ending path. Like you would be very hard to discover on your own.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's annoying.
But there's also tons of guides out there at this point. So.
Oh yeah. I don't know. I think the zombie thing has been surpassed since then. I mean, hordes and stuff was done better in Days Gone for the most part. I mean, I did enjoy getting, if you do like a bunch of really annoying things and go through the game like 4 times to get all the different ending things, you got Mega Man's outfit, which basically made you Mega Man right down to being able to shoot the blaster, and like the blaster can just clear them all. The blaster is actually, because there's a fake Mega Man blaster that shoots like foam balls, but you can unlock an actual Mega Buster that shoots lasers.
Yeah, there are certain weapons in that game that, like, once you get them, you don't want to give them up because they're way better than a lot of.
And honestly, Dead Rising 2 did that better.
Yeah.
Like, in fact, you could stick electric chainsaws on a staff
and
Darth Maul your
That's
way.
right. That whole shtick was you could go to a bench.
Yeah.
And you could combine like elemental stuff with the weapons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was some of that, and the crafting was sort of in this, but like. Because this one, I mean, the God mode in this is dual wielding mini chainsaws,
or using like the mower or whatever.
Yeah, but the mini chainsaws, if you could because you can buff them with magazines or books, I think. And there was a point where I had like these double mini chainsaws because I had bonuses with them that basically made them, because the durability of the weapon is what makes it kind of limits them.
Yeah.
But I had durability bonuses on those chainsaws because of how I upgraded Frank or something that like basically made them like they lasted forever.
Yeah.
Like I could clear the game with them.
Yeah.
Like, from start
Before
to
they
finish.
broke. Yeah.
So like you could have fun breaking the game like that, but that takes dozens of hours to get to that point, and by that point you're like, I've done it so like it was one of those games that started to make me feel sick when I loaded up. Like,
What do you
the
think
way
about...
you feel if you've eaten too much chocolate. You
Yeah.
know?
What do you think about Capcom focusing on this being the big game for its?
I don't know.
It's
Like,
a little weird.
It really feels like of all the series you have in the back burner, this would be the one to kind of clear off the stove.
Yeah.
I feel like Dead Rising has run its course.
Yeah. I was kind of surprised by this. But anyway, again, it's coming on September 19th.
I feel like you'd get a better response from a Dino Crisis.
I think so
remake.
too. Vincent says, I wonder if the timer will be more accepted now since it's basically a roguelite from before they were a real thing. I mean, you're right. It is kind of a roguelite. You have, like, you go out on runs, and you have X amount of time to accomplish as much as you can, and you come back, you try to, maybe, but probably not.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's how you get the Mega Buster. You have to kill, like, 10,000 zombies or
That's
something.
right. That's right.
We're just running over zombies in that tunnel with a Jeep over and over again.
Yeah. Pharaoh Doll says, us Darkstalkers fans sitting here like...
Yep. There's a lot of stuff sitting in the vaults that Capcom just isn't using.
Yeah.
Like, you don't even need to make a fighting game with the Darkstalkers. You can make an adventure game with them. You can do a lot of stuff with those characters.
Controller Zenzing says, bring back Final Fight.
Ugh. I don't think beat-em-ups are the way to go.
Yeah. Those are like indie games
Incorporating Final Fight characters into Street Fighter is better than the other way around.
Agreed. Yep. Bushy Wookie saes, I would love to see Onimusha rebooted. Would require huge changes, but the look would appeal.
Yeah, maybe. I get Onimusha vibes from that weird princess one that the demo just went up. You know the one that we didn't know what it was, and it's true that you'd have to defend the princess from the it looks very Japanese mythology.
Oh, we're about to talk about that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kunitsugami.
Yeah, I get Onimusha vibes from that to some degree.
A little bit.
More stylized. Like
fixed camera angles in Sword Combat. Probably not the best mix in 2024, but they could find some other way to do it.
It's weird that like in this era of Dark Souls clones that Capcom hasn't done a Dark Souls clone on Onimusha because it feels like that's just sitting there.
Yeah.
Maybe they just don't want to touch that subgenre. But
that's possible. Yep. So anyway,
bring back genre. No.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a great intro. If you've never seen the CG intro to Onimusha 3, go Google that sucker because it's still pretty damn good.
A lot of the CG things.
A lot of it's good, but that was really good.
It was, yeah.
That was very impressive even for CG at the time.
Yep. So again, that's Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster DR. Next up, Matt just... Dirter.
Fitting.
It is. Next up, the game that Matt just teased, in my opinion, probably the best thing that was in this, was a brand new trailer and announcement of a demo for Kunitsugami Path of the Goddess. At this point, Matt, we've pretty much figured out what this game is. It is a tower defense game with active combat. So during the day, you recruit soldiers, you accumulate equipment like trebuchets and turrets, and then you set up your soldiers and all your equipment along this predetermined path. And then at night, you actually execute the plan. You follow along with the princess, you protect her as she walks along the path, and you hope that all the defenses that you set up during the day hold true, and you get her safely to her destination, and that's pretty much the game. But there's a lot more nuance sort of mixed in there with it, but that's the basic premise of it.
My main thing with I really like the aesthetic look and the art style, but it's just so busy.
It really is.
Like
Everything blends together.
I find this game very hard to read visually.
It looks like puke. It looks like visual vomit. It's too much, too many colors, too many textures, like...
That's the current anime style, though.
Oh, really?
Like, if you look at like a lot of the current, like the high-end, top-notch studios, like the best animation being done in anime, it's all completely visually unreadable noise in the name of like the frenetic combat.
Wow.
And like you can't even see. Like I think you're gonna look back in 10 years, like and be like, what was anyone thinking? Like it.
Well, games like this would have crushed old hardware because texture variety back, 10 years ago is what would bring hardware to its knees.
And this is, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's really impressive here.
Yeah.
But I just don't know what's happening. I
am shocked that this game got a green light. I'm really interested in it because I love tower defense. It is literally low key. That's what we're getting to. There is a demo right now that launched yesterday, and that was the smartest thing Capcom could have done.
You absolutely need a demo for this.
You have to give people a taste of this game. There's no doubt about it. The other thing too that's smart is that this game is going to be on Game Pass day one. Again, great idea. This is a new IP. Capcom is hoping catches on so they can make a sequel and it becomes another fruitful property for it to go forward with. That's not going to happen if you just try to sell this game at $70. It's just not. You need people to try it, get a taste of it, give it a go, or play it basically for free on Game Pass. And then hopefully that builds interest in the IP so that the sequel makes more sense.
Did they say how much the Dead Rising remake is?
Oh, I actually did not write down that information. They may not have provided it, actually.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything.
Yeah, I don't think maybe they shared it.
I just thought of that when you said the Game Pass thing.
Yeah, I don't think they've shared that, actually. Yeah. But, again, it's not coming until September, so they have some time. They need to put out that release date trailer, Matt, to get another round of interest from the game. I mean, that's how it works. Debut trailer, gameplay trailer, and then a bunch of stuff in between, then release date trailer, and then launch trailer.
50, Vincent says.
$50? Whoo.
Wow.
That's a lot.
That's a spicy meatball.
It's way too spicy.
That's going stale real fast.
Yeah. I don't know how much they're going to sell this game for either, but they'd probably be smart to make this like 40 or 50
Vincent
bucks.
says this is also 50.
50? Okay. That makes sense, and I think that's smart. Yeah. So I'm cool with that. And I'm actually cool with this game. I'm excited for this game. But again, I
don't really know what to think, but at least it's new. It's different.
Yeah. I mean, we don't get a chance to play new types of games like this very often anymore, sadly. And I'm all about it. So I'm very excited for this game. Again, even the name.
I just have a feeling I'm not going to understand it.
Yeah.
I'm going to be like, okay.
I mean, if it's just a tower defense game, I'll be fine just playing it. I love tower defense. I love setting everything up and then seeing how it all plays out.
I'm curious how much of your success relies in setting up like what the defenses or soldiers are, and how much of it relies on being good at fighting.
Right. How much you can overcome with your actual skill.
How much of my inability to plan is going to be able to be made up for by the fact that I'm really good at hitting shit.
Right. Seriously. I mean, everybody has their strengths and weaknesses.
Because I'll tell you which of those two things I'm better at.
Yes, exactly.
And if you get 3 guesses and the first 2 don't count.
Yep. I also think the name of this game is probably a huge mistake.
Yeah, my inability to remember the name of the game is a problem, especially as someone who's like been interested in Japanese like culture and anime for like as long as I've existed, and I still can't remember the name of the fucking thing. Like,
Matt, I bet if you text me an hour and a half from now when I get home, and you say what's the name of that game, I will not be able to tell you.
I already forgot.
Yeah, Kunitsugami.
Kunitsugami.
Yeah, Path of the Goddess. It should just be called Path of the Goddess. Like, at least for Western audiences, they should ditch like the Japanese nomenclature. But this game is so avant-garde and out of bounds. It's like maybe a crazy name like that makes sense for it.
A Japanese name does sort of feel needed here. I mean, not just because. I mean, look at it.
Yeah,
it's just a yokai wall to wall.
It's insane. Watching this footage is insane. Look at this.
I mean, I love the art style. It's just I hope that once you're playing it, you can, you'll kind of learn to filter out the visual noise and kind of understand what the important things you need to look at are.
Yeah.
I assume that's what those flags above the enemy groups are.
Yeah. Acidityke says, I guess you'll learn after each mission how the units work and then get better at deciding what to do. I mean, that's tower defense in a nutshell. Yeah. You learn the strengths and weaknesses of each unit and where they excel and where to place them along the path and all that kind of stuff. Tower defense is a lot of trial and error. Let's just be honest. But there's also that satisfaction of setting everything up and having it work exactly how you thought it was going to work. And that's what I love about tower defense. When you actually nail it and you get it on like your first or second try, you're like, oh, I got this sorted. So I'm excited for this game. I have a feeling most people are not. I have a lot of feeling I
think most people don't know it
It's
exists.
not even on the radar. Yeah, I think you're right. I think most people don't even know what it is. Or
not through any fault of it.
Yeah. But this is a hard game to market. It's just insane.
What? I mean, obviously we know it is, but you watch this footage, you're like, what is this?
I know. This is what happens when you get her safely to the gate, basically. There's a big old celebration that goes down. So, again, it's Kunitsu. I almost forgot it again. Kunitsugami.
It's a little bit like that big dance everybody does at the end of Balan Wonderworld.
Yeah, actually, let's not invoke the name Balan Wonderworld, Matt. The Capcom will assassinate us.
Now you've said it twice. Say it again, it'll summon it.
Yeah, someone will run me off the road on the way home. The Capcom sticker on the bumper sticker. So anyway,
wearing his hat over his eyes.
Yeah, again, that's Kunitsugami.
It's Yuji Naka and his new life of crime.
Yeah.
How'd you get out?
Now I'm a career criminal.
Insider trading was just the beginning.
Yeah. And then the final thing that they shared in this Capcom Next event that happened yesterday is the launch of Resident Evil 7 on Mac and Apple. So RE7 just launched on iOS and Mac. I don't know why.
For all four of you
Seriously,
who've been waiting for that.
They already put out, was it the RE4 remake or whatever? And it tanked. It did nothing.
Well, I'm always stunned at, even when I load Steam up on my MacBook, how many things are compatible with it. I'm just like, I can't believe people still put the effort in for that. As someone who's used Apple for 40 years almost at this point, obviously in the 90s I used my Macs as game machines because I couldn't afford a PC, so I just played whatever was available. Whatever Aspire and whatever those other couple of those Mac port studios were willing to throw me. I would, I'm sitting here playing Baldur's Gate 4 years after it came out.
Yeah.
Great, but also I have a giant box full of old Mac versions of games if anyone wants to preserve those for some reason. I don't know what to do with those. But as soon as I had, enough disposable income to get a gaming PC in addition to my work stuff on Mac stuff, I never looked back.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah. Well, the worst part about this being in this Capcom Next was that I heard that damn Go Tell Aunt Rhodey song again, which just now is still stuck in my head like 2 days later.
The Mac game where you paper airplane was called Glider. Glider.
Yeah. Interesting.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that was an original on there, I think.
I'm not sure why Apple signed this deal with Capcom. I know Capcom's like, sure, yeah, we'll port it to your phones and your Mac, but because we don't care if it sells or not, if you give us enough money.
You can put on a toaster if they give us money, yeah.
I mean, I just wonder why Apple seems insistent on turning iPhones and iPads and Macs into gaming consoles.
I don't know. Like, the thing about it is, like, for years, Steve Jobs hated video games. And even though he made a lot of money off Breakout,
right,
conning Steve Wozniak into making it for him for no money. But he felt like Macs were tools and that games didn't really belong on them. And so he never encouraged anything like that, and nobody really minded. Because,
people didn't want that from a Mac. Yeah.
But now like there's sort of this element of like trying to make them available and valuable in every market, and this is like, it just feels like it's too late.
Paid games just don't work on mobile. They just don't. They never have. No. I don't know if they ever will, but probably not.
No.
It's just not what people are looking for.
And I liked some of them, like, and also, like, you assume someone who can afford Mac hardware has the money to buy a separate game, but you just don't. I don't remember the last time I bought a separate. No, I bought standalone like board game digital versions on my phone.
I've never bought a standalone game on my phone. No,
Infinity
Super
Blade?
Mario Run. That was a paid game, right?
Yeah,
when it first came out. Yeah.
Infinity Blade.
Never bought it. I played it, but I never bought it. There's iPad games. I remember people were into those, but I never did buy one.
I bought all three of those.
Did you?
And I mean, most of them became some kind of game as a service thing. Like, every once in a while, the update pops up, and I'm like, I still have Transformers Earth Wars installed. That's interesting. You're funny. Still supporting that game? That was the game that one week I decided I was going to spend I was going to remove all my budgeting, and I was like, I'm going to spend as much money on this game as I want to
see what happens.
And I did. I spent like $300 on it, and it wasn't any better. It wasn't more fun. It didn't make me play anymore. Yeah. I didn't get any of the characters I wanted because the odds of getting the things you want are like 0.03% or what. No matter how many of those fucking things you do, it's like playing the lottery. It doesn't matter how many tickets you buy.
Yeah.
You're not gonna do it. You're not gonna
win.
Yeah. Well, somebody's got to get. Well, somebody isn't me, is it?
They're like, well, if you buy 100 tickets, then it cuts your odds to 1 in 5 billion.
Yeah. So that was sort of my I got it out of my system. I'm just like, I'm just gonna see what this is, and
one and done.
And it was just like, nope, that wasn't any more fun.
Yeah.
It's not having to wait for the bar to fill up, not any more fun. Not having to wait, because also it was like I just stomped everything and it was over, and then as soon as I stopped spending money on it, I was back in the grind, and anything I needed to do that was actually gonna make me progress without paying money. It was still too hard to like make progress reliably, and I kept getting, even my upgraded guys kept getting killed because that's what it was like. It's dumb.
Yeah.
It's dumb.
Because they also have to balance the game so you can't pay to win mostly. So paying, you're not going to pay to win. So what's the point? It's cosmetics.
Like, well, I did get pretty good progress while I was paying for it, but as soon as I stopped paying, the progress stopped. And like,
that's what it was, pay to win, basically.
It was basically.
Wow.
And even though but I didn't care about winning. I wanted, like, Shockwave or whatever my characters
too,
were.
If they tune it so that if somebody spent a lot of money, if they don't give up the goods as freely after that, if they stop paying because they're like, you're a whale, we want you to come back.
Now you know what it feels like to be successful.
Right.
I think that's what they're after there.
Right.
But that doesn't work on me. It just makes me mad.
Right.
Especially because
rational human being.
Well, because like the thing in that situation, especially with an IP I care about, like Transformers, the thing I wanted was access to the characters I want. I wanted to have all the Stunticons so I could form Menasor.
Yeah.
Not because Menasor was going to win the game for him, because I like Menasor.
Right. Yeah.
But there was no way for me to do that reliably. I spent like $50 on the Menasor pack, on the Stunticon pack, and never got the last one because one of them was like super rare because that's how they do it. And I'm just
they got your $50
it's
though.
Fucking stupid.
It really is. Yeah. Well, anyway, there is Capcom's Next for summer 2024. We won't go so far as to say it's not E3 Next. Should we even bother giving a letter grade for that, Matt?
I don't have
D+.
one, I guess.
It wasn't good.
I'll give it a DR.
Yeah, I mean, they did announce officially Resident Evil 9, so that's a little bit of weight, but otherwise,
for all that good at
Capcom really didn't need to do this at all, pretty much.
No one would have been angry if they didn't. They just skipped it and waited until they had something to show for RE9 or something. Well,
there you go. That's Capcom Next Summer 2024. Next up,
I did see the Dead Rising. That's the name of it, right? I did see that briefly, but I didn't realize it was part of a presentation.
Because who would think it would be in 2024? Okay, let's move on. We're going to talk next about Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, which is really just a remade version of Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, which technically was Luigi's Mansion 2, but they didn't want to call it Luigi's Mansion 2 because that game was a 3DS game instead of being a console game. Now, Nintendo has destroyed the barriers between console and handheld, and now they've decided to unify the bloodline of the Luigi's Mansion franchise, and they've decided to call it Luigi's Mansion 2 HD for Switch. Now, a lot of you maybe never played this because, again, it was a 3DS game, and I would argue it is one of the best 3DS games. Literally one of the best looking, one of the best playing. It is, for all intents and purposes, a full-featured console game that they managed to shrink down on the 3DS. And there are comparison videos between this version for Switch and the 3DS version, and this version is literally frame for frame the same game. Literally frame for frame. Minus the fact that they've completely redone the visuals using the engine that they use for Luigi's Mansion 3, which, in my opinion, is probably the best-looking Switch game ever. And this game isn't too far behind it. I'll be honest with you, it does not look quite as good as Luigi's Mansion 3.
Yeah, there's some weird seams on some of the character models, but otherwise it looks very good.
It looks damn good. And in fact, this B-roll looks damn good. I don't know. I think on my new PC, one, does a better job capturing footage, and two, my new CPU, I think, does a better job of rendering footage. Because before you got up here, Matt, I was checking out the footage on this, and it looks crispy clean, man. Like,
well, I mean, also the game is crispy.
It is, yeah. This game looks damn good.
I think Luigi's Mansion 3, I think they really nailed the detail level of a Mario game in HD.
Yeah.
I think that's certainly at this hardware level. I think that is that is exactly what it should look like. It still has the simplicity, but everything has the right shading, and the lighting's going full bore, and like you look at them close enough, you can see the material that the overalls are made out of. One thing I do find a little weird, when he teleports Luigi, he breaks up into little cubes.
Voxels, basically.
And there's red ones. And I know that probably that's supposed to be the vacuum, like the poltergust thing.
5,000.
That's red.
Yeah.
But the red cubes are in there before you get the vacuum.
Yeah.
Which means it has to be his internal organs.
He is terrified every time he gets sucked into that thing. He never trusts it.
Well, because he knows he's going to die.
Will you get to the end?
He dies. Like it's like the teleporter in Star Trek.
Well, you get to the end of the game, and he's still freaked out by it. And at that point, Egad starts to be like, dude, like, you've gone through this thing like 20 times, and you're still scared? Like, it starts to become a joke between the two of them.
Luigi knows that he, on this end, he closes his eyes, and something else opens its eyes on the other end. That's how it works.
Now, the plot behind this game is it picks up after the first Luigi's Mansion. And if you remember, Luigi goes to the mansion, he captures all the ghosts and puts them in this machine for Egad. Well, Luigi goes home, and Egad contacts him. He's like, dude, all the ghosts that you captured for me in the first game, they've all gone crazy, and they've all broken loose, and I need you to come back here and catch them again.
I thought he was in a different area.
He is in a different area, yeah. But so the ghosts escape the containment unit that they had put them in the first one, and they go and start basically haunting these new areas. And one of the big differences with this game in the first Luigi's Mansion, the other thing I should say too, Matt, is I went back and read my review for the first Luigi's Mansion when I worked at GameSpot, and that review is now 23 years old. And so I read my review on GameSpot that's now 23 years old to compare it to see what the changes were for this. And I'll be honest, Matt, this game pretty much goes backwards in every way from the first Luigi's Mansion. And a big part of that is because it was on a handheld. And so where the first Luigi's Mansion was more like your typical Mario game where you just kind of go into the mansion and complete it and all the puzzles kind of connect together and help you unlock the rooms. You're constantly getting keys. This game is mission-based. So you go back to Egad's lab. After you finished a mission, you stick the Poltergust 5000 into his machine. It offloads everything. You get your gold that you collected, the coins that you collected during the mission. That goes to a meter that will level things up, so it will increase the power of your Poltergust. Eventually, you get this other light attachment that's a black light. It'll increase the duration of that. You get this strobe bulb thing. And basically, all the coins that you collect help power that stuff up. But in the first game, it was like a continuous adventure that you played. In this, it's broken up. You go and you play for like 30 or 40 minutes in the mansion or whatever the building is.
Lucky.
And there's like 6 different buildings you play through in this. And you finish the one mission, he calls you back. You go back, you unload all your stuff from the Poltergust, you level up, and then you go and select the next mission and move on. And that's how the whole game plays. Each location or mansion in this game has basically 6 different missions that you go on, and then the final one in each mission is a boss. You fight the boss, and you get a piece of the Dark Moon. And that's the objective. You have to collect 6 pieces of the Dark Moon, and that will dispel the gloom from the entire area. And at that point, you've collected all the ghosts, you put them back into the containment thing, everybody dusts off and goes home, and everybody's happy. And that's kind of the premise behind the game. And it does break things up. And there are times in this where you will finish an enemy, even a boss in some cases, and there will be a bunch of like gold sitting on the floor, and it won't let you collect it. It will just zap you back to Egad's lab or bunker, and you can't get it. And the other thing too is like once you finish some of these missions in this game, you cannot go back and get stuff. So if you missed an important collectible or an item or a bunch of gold, in a lot of cases, you'll never be able to go back and get that stuff again. Now, if you finish a game, it unlocks all the missions. You can play them at your leisure and go back and collect stuff if you want to. But while you're playing through it your first time, you can't really go back and get that stuff. And I found that to be very off-putting and very weird in 2024. But you'd have to completely gut this game and redo it to make it work any other way.
Yeah, the stop and start. I played a bit of it, and I've forgotten about the mission-based structure in this, which is a shame because the stop and start nature of it really brings it down.
Yeah.
Because the fun of Luigi's Mansion 1 and 3 is kind of the Metroid style, exploring the place and opening new areas and finding this and going over it.
Yeah.
And like as soon as you get into the groove on this one, he zaps you back, and you're just like, "Fuck
It's
yeah!"
very
Like,
jarring. Yeah.
I mean, the gameplay is fine. You know, Luigi's Mansion is always a good time,
Yeah.
no matter what. But like, I feel like it's really gatekeeping the good time for me in this game. And it honestly, by the end of the first building, I was getting really irritated with it.
Yeah. Well, this
Like,
game,
I wanted to just go back and play 3 again.
Yeah. This game does play like all the other Luigi's Mansions. You have a flash bulb on your poltergust. When you know there's a ghost there, you flash it, it stuns the ghost, then you hit the right trigger to start sucking the ghost up into the vacuum. Once you start sucking the ghost into the vacuum, you hold the left analog stick away from the direction the ghost is going, and that allows you to build up the meter faster, that allows you to then capture the ghost into the poltergust. The more advanced tactics to ghost hunting in this is to become good with the flash. So you goad a bunch of ghosts so that they're following you. You turn around and flash, and you want to try to flash as many ghosts at a time as you can, because
you can get more than one at a
all
time.
at one go. And later on in the game, some of the boss fights are crazy frenetic, where you're fighting like 8 or 9 ghosts at a time in a confined area. If you don't get good at that, basically manipulating the ghosts so they're all together and then flashing them all at once so you can try to take them down all at once, you'll never beat those bosses. It becomes a very integral tactic to make headway through the game. And again, that is something that's been in Luigi's Mansion from the very beginning. But Matt, another thing that I realized that was a big change after reading my ancient review on GameSpot is that the first game had this elemental element to it where the poltergust was used as a gun way more often than it is in this. You can use it in this, but it's more on almost like on a context sensitive like nature, where it's like, hey, here's this thing right now that you need to solve this puzzle right now and shoot it. In the first game, you were using it as a gun quite frequently. And again, like, you needed to use very specific elemental attacks to basically soften up the ghosts. And some ghosts you couldn't even catch unless you started with the elemental attacks first. And that's, again, a big change that isn't present here. So it does lose another layer.
Yeah, I was kind of
strategy,
waiting for
so
that to happen in this, and it just never came.
It never does.
Because that's integral to how the Luigi's Mansion games played.
Yeah, typically it is.
I don't know if I actually played this on the DS. I can't remember. If I did, I didn't play it very long.
I played it on 3DS, but I didn't finish it because I got tired of trying to play it. I only ever had the original 3DS, and it's a long game. This game is like, I don't know, 18 hours long. Like, if you use a guide, I'm sure you can get through it in like 5 or something like that. But if you're really poking around and trying to solve everything on your own, you could probably get around 18 hours out of this game when it's all said and done. There's 6 different mansions, or 5 different mansions, 6 different mansions you have to go through, and each one of those has 6 different mission objectives you have to go through, and each one of those lasts anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. So it is a pretty big game, and I got to the point on the 3DS, Matt, that I just was like, I don't want to play this anymore on this little dinky screen.
And Quickster says, any point playing this over Luigi's Mansion 3? None whatsoever.
None. I mean, look, you know me. Luigi's Mansion 3 was one of my Game of the Year contenders the year it came out. So this game would have to do a lot. In honesty, if you overheard us talking before the show started, when we had the mics up, Matt and I shared that this is the worst of the Luigi's Mansion games.
Yeah.
Of the 3,
I wouldn't say
it's the
it's
worst.
bad.
No, it's not bad at all. I still enjoyed the hell out
by
of it.
far the least of
But
the
it's
3.
not as good as the other 2, for sure.
Yeah, and I hope they do bring the 3DS port of the first game to the Switch and get them all on the same system at some point, because the first one's still good.
Yeah, it's still gorgeous too, the first one. There's some stuff in that first one that I don't see as often in this one, like when he opens doors in the first one, you can see like dust floating in the lighting.
Well, that was, I mean, the GameCube was real
It's
good
insane.
at some stuff.
Yeah, it really was.
I mean, even the remastered Metroid Prime, there's places where it doesn't look as good as the GameCube.
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
Like, the GameCube was a beast.
Yeah.
A secret beast.
Yeah. Now, this franchise does cheat because it is a room-by-room game, and it, like, dissolves. It's clever how it does it. How as you go deeper into the mansion, the walls dissolve so that you can see what's happening, but it's never drawing all that much at once.
No.
Like, it's actually, if you've watched GameFace for a long time...
Well, at least it is drawing something, unlike the Resident Evil remake on GameCube.
Good point. But if you've watched GameFace for a long time, I've had this long-held dream of a developer making a game that is 100% inside, so that they can use the power of that hardware to display the best possible whatever. Because they're using all the polygons on a room and the character model, and that's it. And that, therefore, they can make it look amazing. That's what this game is. And this is obviously being done on weaker hardware, but look what you can do with even weak hardware if that's sort of the tactic that you're using to design your game. So this game is gorgeous still. It's probably top 5 Switch games as far as graphics are concerned, but still not as good as Luigi's Mansion 3. But again, it does cheat. You're never going to see a big open vista like you see in Zelda or even in Mario these days. It is very confined, but that's how you can get so much detail, so much texture variety as well in this game. Each room, look at the number of textures in each one of these rooms. Like, I really think this is about as good as it could look on Switch with the power of that hardware. With all the lighting and the particle effects and the transparencies and all the other stuff that's going on in this game. I think that's about as good as it could possibly look. But overall, it is a pretty simple game. Like, it is like a puzzle platformer. Like, there's lots of cases where you get a new ability, you have to try to remember where you go and then you use it. And eventually you get new abilities. They're like, oh, now you can play with fire. And then they introduce a bunch of missions in a row where you're messing with spider webs that you can burn down. But then you realize it's also a really effective weapon on all the rank and file enemies in the level. So I had a good time with this, Matt. Not as good a time as Luigi's Mansion 3. And not as good a time as I remember from back in 2000. Was it 2000 or 2001?
2001 was the first one.
Yeah. And I remember having a better time with that than I had with this as well.
Yeah.
But it is a good game. But this brings up a very important point, though. This game is $60.
Mm-hmm.
And
which is bonkers.
Just on principle, it's hard for me to rationalize.
The fact that this is the same price as 3 was when it came out.
Yeah.
Might still be that much. I don't know. Nintendo doesn't drop prices much.
Yeah. And that's too much.
Way too much.
Even though it is...
Half would be too much.
Yeah.
To me.
$30, I think, is about right.
I wouldn't.
Because this was $35 when it came out on 3DS.
I wouldn't want to pay more than $20 for this.
Oh, I would pay more than that.
I think this is aged very poorly in terms of
I wouldn't go that far.
It doesn't let you play long enough.
Yeah. I mean, it is jarring that it keeps taking you back. Like, I agree with that, but I still think the game's worth like $30. And I still think it's fun to play and worth playing. I think if we hadn't played the other Luigi's Mansions, we'd probably like it better than we do, but we have.
Sure, but it wouldn't exist otherwise.
Yeah. And then difficulty-wise...
not even taking 3 into account, just compared to 1, it's just... I mean, if I was making this, I'd be tempted to have made it all contiguous and remove the mission structure, but then you're making a new game.
It's a lot of work, And then you'd be worth charging $60 for it.
Right, then you could charge $60, I wouldn't mind.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. One thing I will say, too, is I was surprised at how challenging this game gets eventually. Now, the moment-to-moment stuff never really gets that tough, but the boss fights start to get challenging towards the end. And the way the game works is you have 1 life. And if you find a golden dog bone in the level, that gives you an extra life. And a little ghost dog will come and lick you and bring you back to life if you have to use it. But if you go through that golden bone, you have to start the whole thing over again. You go back to Egad's lab and start it from scratch. And some of these missions can take 45 or 50 minutes. If you're fighting a boss and you've fought him, and it's like, some of the boss fights take a while all on their own. You had to do the whole process getting up to the boss fight, and you die after getting the gold bone, and you have to start all over. It's very disheartening. Now, I will say this. If you go to play it the second time, you whip right through it, man. Like, what took you like 30 or 40 minutes before will take you like 8 minutes once you know how to do everything. Mm-hmm. So you do get back to it a little more quickly, but it is still annoying to have to go through the whole process of doing that again. Just something to keep in mind. It's one of the quirks of the game.
Also, for God's sake, turn off the motion controls.
Oh, thank God you brought that up. It's
the only way the flashlight works right.
Turn off the motion controls immediately. Mm-hmm. And this is coming from somebody who typically likes motion controls and likes motion controls in games where you use it for aiming. In this, it ruins everything. I played with it at first. I didn't realize it. I'm like, why can't I control this? It's like it's because I was moving the controller.
And it doesn't. The control of the flashlight in particular stays on the right stick.
Yeah.
And you're holding the button, so you got to claw it to
you're right.
The right. I'm like, what in the world? There's got to be a way to change this in the controls. And sure enough, turning the motion.
Turn it off.
Turn it off, and now you can move him around with the left stick while he's got the flashlight out, and it's fine.
It's literally. Once you turn off the motion controls, it controls like a first-person shooter. You move with the left stick, you control the flashlight and the vacuum with the right stick. And if you just say to yourself, I'm playing Call of Duty, you would be shocked at how good you get at this game very quickly. If you realize it is literally just like playing Call of Duty. Vincent says, what's your hype level for Luigi's Mansion 4 that we'll probably see in the next couple of years on Switch 2? Sky high.
Sure, because I'm sure they won't do this with it.
Yeah, if it's as good as Luigi's Mansion 3, I'm all over it, man. Like, I love Luigi's Mansion 3. Let me see if there's anything else I should mention before we move on. I talked about dying all the time.
And every time like that, right? I mean, obviously not at this point because it's so early, but like when he busts like a little mini ghost that's important or something, or a secret ghost or whatever, sometimes he'll do the thing. And every time he does that, I'm afraid they're going to teleport me out before I can pick up the gold bars.
The light will
wait,
come on.
Don't fucking answer the phone yet, asshole.
Me too.
We got to get on money.
Yeah, and sometimes he'll do his little dance, and then the lights come on, and then that's the moment of truth. They're gonna suck me back to Egad's lap. Yeah, I guess what I would say about this game and this franchise in general is that it's a very satisfying game to play in the same way that it's satisfying to watch like a YouTube video of somebody like power washing a dirty sidewalk or power washing a filthy rug where you just like go side to side and it just goes from filthy to like perfectly clean. Like the whole process of sucking things up, like the physics behind all the objects, like
although that's
very satisfying.
I would definitely say that applies to 3. For this one, this one's a little more of the where you're watching the rug washing and you're like, why don't you just get a new rug?
Yeah, it's like all this work because no one will watch the videos then. Have you noticed it's like a cottage industry on YouTube to make power washing videos? They go and they're like, I'm going to power wash your whole building for free because
I'll make more money.
I can make a YouTube video of it where I'll make $5,000 and I would charge you $200 to do the job. It's hilarious. There's more value in watching somebody work than the actual work.
Yeah, it was like that guy who goes around trimming everybody's lawns. And
it's the same thing.
Because he videotapes it and he makes more money online than he would from actually
cutting the lawn. Yeah, it's interesting. There's a couple really awesome moments in this. Like there's one mission you go into, or one room you go into that's like all filled with steam, and you turn off like the things that are creating the steam. And it took me a second. I'm like, what am I supposed to do here? And I accidentally hit like the suck on the vacuum, and it cleared the steam halfway out of the room. And I was like, okay. Then I hit it. It sucked all the steam out of the room into the vacuum, and then I got like the winning chime or whatever. Like this game has very creative moments like that where you're like, what? Like, there's not enough of them, but there are. There's some like shining moments in this, but then there's some also really annoying ones. Like there's this other set of missions that you do where you have to chase the ghost dog, and you end up using the black flashlight to go through the entire level looking for his footprints and looking for where he went through the walls. That got really annoying.
Yeah, and that's there because like when you played on the 3D on the DS, you were supposed to tilt it to like look at the things on the ground, and that was like a big deal. And
there's also holes in the wall.
The holes in the wall. I forgot about that until I was like, oh right, you're supposed to.
You look through. There's holes in the wall that you look through, and on the 3DS, it was there so that you could check out the 3D basically, and you'd like tilt your 3DS and look through the hole in the wall. In this, it serves no purpose.
Yeah.
Like they should have probably just cut it out.
Like I completely, I was like early on, I did the first couple. I'm like, why is that in? And it wasn't until I remember. Oh right.
They don't even like give you clues to like show you a different view where you can see like hidden.
No, it's just like dumb skits with ghosts.
Pretty much. And like one of them was funny, and the rest were not. Literally one out of all of them was funny. But it is in the upper echelon of Switch games as far as the graphics are concerned. Turn off the motion controls. The music in the game is all a bunch of pipe organ horror music like you would expect from like 50s horror films. I think it does well. Luigi will start humming along to the songs here and there. That's something that's always been in Luigi's Mansion. I'm glad that they brought that along. And then ultimately there is a multiplayer mode called Scare where you can play through a lot of the missions in the game with friends online. I don't know, your mileage is going to vary on that. And I don't think that completing those missions with friends will complete those missions in your single-player save. I don't believe so. I actually didn't check. The missions that I played on Scare I had already completed in the main campaign, so I don't know, actually. I'll just be honest with you. I don't know how that works. But the multiplayer mode is there if you want to play it, and it works out just like the Scare in Luigi's Mansion 3 if you played that at all. So overall, I would say I would not spend $60 for this game. That's way too much. Again, as I said, I would pay $30 for it, and Nintendo never lowers the prices on its games. And if you look around on the internet, I think the biggest criticism of this game is the price tag. And that's fair enough, because it is a big issue. I don't know why Nintendo decided to get so greedy with this. Again, it sold for $35 when it first launched for the 3DS. So charged almost double for it because it's on Switch. It feels like a cash grab. Yeah. So...
I mean, clearly work was done on it, but I don't know if it's that much work.
Yeah, a lot of work was done on the graphics for sure. Drifter J says, I still like the look of the first game. It was a little creepy in a fun way. Yeah. It did start getting a little more tongue-in-cheek and corny with this one.
Yeah.
And Luigi's Mansion 3 continues that aesthetic.
Yeah.
The first one cared
had
more.
Some legit, like, there were at least moments where you're like, okay, I understand why he's scared.
Right. And in this, you don't.
And this, you're like, bro, it's fucking the Three Stooges out here. What do you, like, how many times can something pop out of a shower at you and you're still afraid of it? Like, give me a
and
break.
he's terrified through this entire game. Like I said, even like at the end of the game, he's still terrified of going through the whole EGAD, like...
Yeah, like, I know that that's his thing. I mean, he should be afraid of the teleporter. That's a murder machine. But the ghosts, like, come on. Like, after you handle your 100th one, I think the horror would wear off, right?
Yep. And my other criticism of this game, too, is that there needs to be more ghosts. There's literally, like, 4 ghost types.
There's really not a lot of variety.
And they use the same ghost types, other than the bosses, pretty much all the way to the end of the game.
Especially weird because there's, like the little roster thing they do in the basement or whatever. It's like, look at all the different ghost types. I'm like, what, like 4 of them? Like, what do you...
And then we should mention this, in each level there's a hidden boo to find. And so when you finish each level, you get a star rating from 1 to 3 stars, and then it'll tell you whether you got the boo or not in each one. I don't know what collecting the boo actually does, ultimately. But that stuff, that's the other thing. The first Luigi's Mansion had a bunch of stuff like that did all tie into like things that would happen later on in the game. I don't think that happens in this one like it did in the first one, or the third one for that matter. So... it's a good game. It's not a great game. It's a great looking game, but it's not worth $60, and that's what Nintendo is asking for it. And so that's a hard buy for me. And so I would say that you probably should avoid this game, or at least try to pick it up on the cheap. Maybe buy it on eBay after somebody else takes a plunge for $60, and maybe you can get it for like 35 or 40. I'd probably be okay with that if you're a big fan of Luigi's Mansion, the franchise in general. But overall, it's the worst of the 3 games.
Yeah, just get 3 if you don't already have it.
Yeah, exactly. If you're thinking about playing a game in this series, just buy Luigi's Mansion 3. Far and away the best game in the franchise. And that's coming from someone who's played them all. And from way back when, like 20-some years ago, that really was what blew my mind. I've been playing Luigi's Mansion for over 20 years. And 2, reading my review, it was very informative. And it made me realize that there were a lot of steps backwards with this game. So... there you go.
Yeah, which kind of, I mean, probably necessary because of the hardware it was on.
Yeah.
But it's not on that anymore. You could have beefed some things up.
Yep.
But it's a very, very faithful recreation for better or worse.
Yeah. Yep. So there you go. That's Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, or as it used to be known as Dark Moon. And with that, it's time for a word from our sponsor, New York Sneaker Society. What's up, everyone? Shane here, and one thing you may not realize about me is that I am a total sneakerhead. That's right, I've been collecting Nike sneakers since the early 90s. My favorites are Air Max 95 and Air Max 97. Now, one thing that's different about me from your typical sneakerhead is that I actually wear the sneakers. And because of that, they can get dirty. And that is where New York Sneaker Society comes in. Using their advanced shoe cleaning products, I turned an old pair of Nikes that looked like this into this. With their cleaning products, your sneaker life can go from a year to 5 or more. I know that. I have shoes that are like 30 years old that I still wear because I've cleaned them. You can also lower your carbon footprint, by keeping your kicks looking fresh. For my daily drivers, I also appreciate New York Sneaker Society's Refresh Spray to keep them smelling great and staying crisp. Head to nysneakersociety.co/sifted to clean your shoes like a pro at home and get 10% off your order. That's right, that's nysneakersociety.co/sifted for 10% off. Don't forget, people, it's very important that you use that URL, nysneakersociety.co/sifted, because if you use that URL, you don't get 10% off, you get 15% off. It's a couple bucks if you buy the $15 kit. If you buy the more expensive $50, $45 kits, that's significant savings. So again, make sure that you use it, nysneakersociety.co/sifted. Make sure you get that 15% off. Make sure you support our sponsors at New York Sneaker Society. And one of the cool things that we do with this sponsorship is we talk about games that are flying under the radar that you guys are all over. And this week, far and away, there is one game that's kind of small-ish that you guys were all over. And I gotta say, I'm a little surprised by this, but once I started investigating it, I started to understand. And that game is Infinity Nikki. You may remember this game was in the Sony State of Play. It was kind of tacked on. People were like, why in the hell is it? This is weird. It's like this open world dress up game. And in fact, that is what it is. It is an open world action dress up game where the lead character, Nikki, gets new dresses and they literally give her new abilities. And I was like, okay, that makes a little more sense. But why are you guys really into this game? Because it's a dress up doll game, basically. And what I discovered is that, Matt, this game is being made by the director of Breath of the Wild. Somehow, they hired away one of Nintendo's best producers, and this is the game that he's working on. And once I learned that, I was like, okay, one, it makes sense why our users, our sifters, are all over it. And two, watching this trailer, everything now makes sense. And this is very much like Breath of the Wild. It even has shrines, just like Breath of the Wild. But it's just
Makes
odd.
you wonder if this is what Zelda was going to be.
This is based on like a Chinese mobile gacha game. That's where the property comes from. But this game is just going way beyond what those mobile games have done. And this was easily the most trafficked game on Sifted as far as a game that's like smaller and flying under the radar. Are you interested in this at all, Matt?
Maybe.
Yeah?
I mean, it kind of depends if it's how Zelda-y is it? How, what are you doing, really? Mm-hmm. Looks nice.
Yeah. Yeah, the visuals are pretty impressive, honestly. But I think it's PC. Actually, I have it in my notes here. 1 second.
I know it's PC and PlayStation.
PC and PlayStation, yeah. And I don't think it's even coming to mobile, actually. But there's dungeons in the game. There's, like, advanced platforming. There's fantastical boss encounters. As I said, there's Zelda-style shrines. You collect outfits and earn outfits throughout the game, and those give her special abilities, like her ability to fly and things like that. You can get new outfits. You can receive them from NPCs. You can earn them via side quests. You can win them in gacha machines. So there's a little bit of that mobile element still hanging on to this one.
The mobile game was not a gacha game.
Yeah, it wasn't. But I'm just saying, like, they have the gacha mechanics in here that kind of take it back to its mobile roots in a way. But yeah, this is one.
It takes it back to Xenoblade 2.
Yeah. This is one to keep an eye on, though, believe it or not. I mean, coming from that kind of a pedigree, the person who made Breath of the Wild, the game of the forever for a lot of critics and a lot of players, this is one to keep an eye on, believe it or not. I never thought that would be the case. This is coming to mobile, PC, PlayStation, and mobile. There's no release date for it yet. However, it is coming, quote unquote, soon. So end of summer, early fall would be my guess.
Soon can mean a lot of things in game development.
It's true. I mean, it could be delayed until 2025. But as of right now, it's supposed to be coming basically in Q3.
Like, I'm definitely open to playing it, but you put this out the same week as Star Wars Outlaws,
right?
You're going to lose that fight with me.
Yeah. And I think they would be stupid to do that, and they probably will not do that. So this is the game that really caught your guys' eye this week because there were previews going up from some outlets who got to play it. And those previews, you guys watch those more than some stuff for some really big games out there. So you guys are all over this game already.
So what was more watched, this or Elden Ring?
Oh, Elden Ring. Yeah, okay. Yeah. I mean, this is like the highest of the lower tier is what I'm getting. That's what the sneaker of the week basically is. Games that are under the radar that people should be paying attention to. You might want to go on Sifted right now. Go to this game's game page. Click the little gear right next to the title, and in that drop down, click follow. And then anytime we curate or publish anything related to that game, it will be pegged to the top of your SIF so you can't miss it. Right now, pretty much every single one of you have followed Grand Theft Auto 6. Literally, thousands of you guys are following Grand Theft Auto 6 on Sifted right now. And you can do that with any game you want. And if you get tired of it, you don't want that game at the top of your SIFT anymore, go back to its game page and just unclick follow, and it'll go right back to the way it was before. But anyway, it's a pro tip for you on how to use Sifted as a power user. But anyway, this game is making waves with you guys. It made waves with me once I investigated it. I'm kind of excited to play it now, and I was laughing at it when we saw it in the state of play. I was like, what in the hell is this? Now I get it, and you guys get it. So there you go. That's our sneaker of the week for GameFace episode 393. And with that, we move on to our last topic in this week's show, and it's another Switch game. This is the week of the Switch, Matt, on GameFace. Two big games, both Switch games. This one is Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble. Matt, I had thought that the Super Monkey Ball franchise had gone away for a really long time. That is actually not the case.
No, I thought it just moved to mobile, pretty much.
The last one came out in 2021, so it hasn't been all that long. But here's something that I had forgotten, and I was really surprised by, is that this franchise is made by the Yakuza team.
Yeah.
What's the name of that studio? Body something or other. It's a Japanese name.
Oh, the Rigago Kite.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. That's who makes Super Monkey Ball. I had completely forgotten that. It's the bizarre thing to me is how poor this game looks graphically. I mean, you can see it right here. It doesn't look much better once you start watching the gameplay.
No Luigi's Mansion 2.
No, it's definitely not. It is on the same hardware.
Like,
but,
it's kind of fuzzy in a weird way.
Right.
It's like soft.
Yeah.
In a weird way. Not a good way.
Yeah, it doesn't have a good display for whatever reason. And then you look at the Yakuza games, and you're like, what is going on here? Why do the Yakuza games look great or fine, and this game is behind the curve? I don't get it. Like, I feel like Sega...
I think just because it doesn't have to be.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I do feel like Sega and some other publishers, I feel like they take advantage of the Switch audience a little bit.
Somewhat, but also...
It's a little dirty.
I think some of this is just like they're zooming in on these character models that are built to be basically seen from a certain distance.
You're not supposed to see them that close. Yeah.
It's just the cutscenes are going to be what they are.
But, I mean, obviously, this game doesn't look in the same class as Luigi's Mansion 2 HD.
It's also showing more on screen than Luigi's Mansion ever
That's
shows.
True, actually. Well, once you get to the levels, not so much.
No, but this is actually more open than any area in Luigi's Mansion
That's the funny
2.
part about it. How long has it been since you played a monkey ball game, Matt?
23 years?
Yeah, has it been that
That's
long?
the first one.
Oh, really? You haven't played since, like, the GameCube era?
No. I played the first one at work, at Tech TV when it came out because we had copies of everything. I won a copy of this game in a raffle the launch night of the GameCube. I was lined up at GameStop, and they did a raffle drawing, and the prize was any GameCube game, any of the launch games, and I already had all the launch games I wanted, so I just picked the next one that was kind of interesting, which was Super Monkey Ball, and that game is still sealed on my shelf downstairs.
Wow. Well, there you go. That says it all.
I never felt the need to actually open it and
it.
play it because I just played it at work for a couple hours, and I was like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
And this series doesn't really do it for me.
I mean, I'll just be perfectly honest with you. I played this for 2 hours, and I could not play it anymore. Because just like you...
I Googled this, and I couldn't figure out which one was the new one. Because the articles involving Banana Rumble, like, go back to, like, 2021 or something.
Really?
Like, there were articles dated, like, long ago.
No, it was just announced, like, 6 months ago.
That's what I knew it was a new one. I didn't think it was a port of anything. But
Yeah,
like
it's brand new.
I couldn't find any Banana Rumble articles that were, like, modern. Or,
Weird.
Like now, I was expecting like, where's the articles that are about it? You know, you expect stuff from like this week or something, and I couldn't find anything. I mean, it's probably just Google being stupid.
Yeah. Well, I played this game for 2 hours, and that is more than enough. One, in the 2 hours, I almost finished the game because there are 170 new stages in this, but each one of them literally takes like 15 to 30 seconds to complete. If you fail them and try them 3 more times, it still only takes 3 minutes to try them the 3 more times. See, it's a little bit like 3D Sonic games, Matt, where we talk about all the time about how it must be so disheartening to work on 3D Sonic games because you bust your ass on a level for like 4 months, and then people blast through them in 90 seconds and never see them again.
I mean, they've literally talked about that. That's why there aren't that many like big Sonic levels, is because it takes a long time to make them, and you idiots get through them in 90 seconds.
Yeah, I mean this game is the epitome of that. Yeah. Like they're 10 seconds. Like it even gives you the time when you play through each one of these. And obviously, like any game, it does ramp up with difficulty, and it does incorporate some new things as you go. The new mechanic for this game is something called the spin dash, and basically it's just a turbo button that you can hold, and it just helps you jump further. Because a big part of this game is ramps and being able to ramp over gaps and things like that. And so you use that spin dash to gain some momentum before you end up hitting ramps, and you're able to just kind of dash and jump and make big jumps. And then there's like some other levels as you get further into it where you're like flipping switches that make bridges go up or down. And you have to get the bridge at just the right angle, and it's very awkward and hard to do. It just started getting to the point, Matt, where I had to start really working to get through the stages, and that's when I was like, no, that's where I draw the line. It started to get hard, and it became unfun, and that's when I was like, okay, this is just like all the other Monkey Ball games I've ever played. I totally get the gist of it. I don't really need to play anymore to get it. And as it turns out, I was right. There is a plot behind this, believe it or not. You and your crew are headed to Juicy Island to find the legendary banana. You get there and you run into this girl who's like, oh, my dad disappeared when I was a child, and I think he came here to find the legendary banana, so can you help me find the legendary banana? You're like, oh, funny, we were already doing that, so that works out great.
For the purple banana till they put us in the... Yeah.
And then you run into like a group of young toughs who are also trying to find the legendary banana, and the race is on to get the legendary banana, and blah, blah, blah. There's a single-player mode you're seeing right now, and like I said, I played it for 2 hours, and I had pretty much finished it at that point. There's a local multiplayer for up to 4 players. There's local wireless for up to 2 players. We only need 1 copy of the game, and you can send it to somebody else wirelessly who has another Switch. And then there's online play. And the online play has basically 2 different options. That you can play through the campaign cooperatively, which is ultimately what I ended up doing. And you can choose to turn on collision with the other characters or turn it off if you want to. I highly recommend turning it off because no matter who finishes the stage, you all get credit for finishing the stage. And so it doesn't matter if like you knock somebody off and you're the one who goes through the goal first. They're going to get credit for going through the goal anyway. So I recommend turning off the combat between characters when you're playing it cooperatively. And then the other option when you're playing multiplayer is there's just like these party games, like multiplayer games. And like literally some of them have like 15 or 20 monkey balls going at it at once. And those are definitely the more fun. Like there's one where it's just like, here's an arena and you have to race all the other monkey balls to collect a bunch of bananas. There's another one where there's like this huge downslope and you're trying to like basically spin dash at the right time to go through these jumps and fly through these rings in the air and collect a bunch of points. It really mixes up the formula a lot, and it was, to me, the most fun I had playing this game in totality was playing the multiplayer battles. They were the most fun to me. Now, you'll see when we get to the B-roll of the multiplayer, the code in this, the net code is abysmal. I have a kick-ass connection at home, like kick-ass, and it was just like a slideshow all over the place. Because again, the problem is that most people that play online games with Switch are playing on Wi-Fi. And so they have this crappy connection, and it bogs down the game for everybody else. Most people are not hardwired on Switch. And so it just became like a slideshow and almost unplayable. And if you're trying to talk about playing stuff like this cooperatively with like 3 other players, if you're having frame rate issues, you just fall off the stupid map. Now, again, only one person has to finish it for everybody to get credit for it. It's still annoying. Because if you fall off when you're playing online with other players, you have to sit and watch everyone else play. It's like you die, you're done. They don't put you back on the map and let you try to finish it again. You have to sit and watch everybody who hasn't died finish off the board, basically. So I had the most fun playing multiplayer in this. The single player, this game is $50, by the way. And I really think if I had not quit, I probably would have finished it in 3.5 hours. And then maybe got another couple hours out of the multiplayer. You're looking at like 5 or 6 hours. I think the end result, Matt, of me playing this game is that I realize why you think there hasn't been one since like the GameCube era and why no one really cares. Because it's a very one-note game. Like, I don't feel any different playing this Switch version 20-some years later than I did playing the original Monkey Ball on the GameCube. You can turn on motion controls in this if you want to. I say, just like with Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, turn them off because it's so sensitive. And don't forget, when you play this game, you're not controlling the ball. You're controlling the level. You're tilting the level, which then makes the ball roll where you want it to. I highly recommend turning off the motion controls. And you don't actually have to turn them off in this. You have to turn them on because Sega was smart and realized that it's basically unplayable using the motion controls. So just stick with the default. Use the analog stick to play this. Do not turn on the motion controls unless you're in for a world of hurting and you're a masochist, and that's what you look for from your video games. Or you're a fan of From Software's games. I mean, seriously though, I mean, when you think about the difficulty and stuff, it's like, so if you like those games, why don't, when you play games like Super Monkey Ball, turn on the options to make it as difficult as possible?
I don't think they're playing a lot of Monkey Ball.
No, they're definitely not.
Dark Souls.
Not a lot of crossover between the Dark Souls fan and the Super Monkey Ball fan. And And then there's like the typical elements you get in every game now with like there's a shop. So as you finish boards, you get points that you earn and you can go into the shop and you can get shoes and outfits and hats and sunglasses and all kinds of other goofy stuff for your monkeys. And then there's like a memories option where you can go and rewatch, like listen to the soundtrack, which is grating AF, or check out the cinematics that you've already unlocked playing through the campaign. The story's definitely not going to keep you engaged in this game, I can tell you that much. It's made for like 4-year-olds, and I guess in general, this game is probably made for younger audiences in general, so that makes sense. But as an adult trying to play this game, now that I'm 20-some years older, I did not enjoy my time with it for the most part. It was novel at first because I haven't played a monkey ball game in like probably 8 or 10 years. I did not play the one that came out in 2021. And so for the first couple of boards, I was like, oh yeah, I remember this. This is kind of fun. And then it became not all that fun. So Super Monkey Ball, Banana Rumble, it's a Switch exclusive. It only came out for Switch. It didn't come out for other platforms. My guess is it's going to come out for all the other platforms eventually. I had to buy this. It wasn't sent to me by Sega. So I went to Best Buy to get it. And like the guy said that I was the first person to buy it. And I didn't buy it until the day after it had come out. So it had sat there for 24 hours and no one had bought a single copy of it. And I can attest to the fact that there aren't a lot of people playing this game because matchmaking for the battle modes where you need like 15 or 20 players takes forever. So my other pro tip is if you do get into matches in this, do not leave the server. Make sure you stay with that group of players and just keep saying yes when they ask you if you want to keep playing, because otherwise it'll kick you back to the lobby and you're going to sit there for quite a while waiting to get a game. So I would pay $20-25 for this max. Like I would never spend $50 for this game. This is a concept that had its time in the sun and doesn't make a whole lot of sense now in 2024. I don't know. I struggled to play this. This was one of those games where I was like, I'm working. Every once in a while on this job, I have days. Well, there are days where I'm working on the site where it's work. I mean, it's just data entry or whatever, and that's just straight up work. But the game playing part of the job, sometimes that becomes work as well. And this is one of those games where it became work. I had to do something I didn't want to do. And isn't that kind of for money? Isn't that a kind of the definition of work?
Yeah,
typically.
Apparently, it is widely considered that Super Monkey Ball Banana Mania is the best in the series.
Okay. When did that come out?
As a Switch game.
So that was the 2021 game, I guess. Probably.
Maybe? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, Banana Rumble, I say stay far, far away from. It is, and again, it is pretty surprising that the Yakuza team makes this franchise. There couldn't be anything further from Yakuza than Super Monkey Ball. And I'm sure they appreciate it because it's probably a refreshing change for them, getting away from the Yakuza franchise for a little while to do something a little more lighthearted. But unfortunately for me, this game just fell flat. I did not really enjoy it.
At least a dozen of these.
And Vincent says Banana Mania is on everything, even Amazon Luna somehow. Vincent says Monkey Ball is great when you're watching a master play it at Games Done Quick. I could see that. We're watching them just fly through these crazy... Because watching my B-roll, you're probably like, damn, Shane's going slow. Because I was like, I just want to complete this. I don't really care how fast I get there. But you're right. Speedrunning, this would probably be a pretty impressive game to watch somebody who's really good at it play. Mike's Q says, but you could use gacha machines that provide prizes and balls just like Monkey Balls. There is a gacha machine in this, actually. I can't remember what they called it. There's some goofy name that they call it. But yeah, there's... Once you acquire a certain number of points or whatever, you get the ability to go to the gacha machine. It spits out a ball, and usually it's like an outfit for your monkey or whatever. And I will say that it was kind of satisfying to put weird outfits on a monkey, Matt. That was might be the most enjoyable part of the game, sadly.
PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Series XS, and Nintendo Switch. Banana Mania. Whatever your choice.
Yep. So my guess is Banana Rumble will also eventually come to all those other platforms as well. So... Right now, it's a Switch exclusive, though. Don't worry about it being sold out because there's nobody at the stores buying this game. I had fleeting moments of fun with it, but not in the ways that I think Sega would want me to have fun with it.
So it collects the first 3 games, basically all the stages from the first 3 games, and adds 100 more.
There you go.
So
that's why.
There it is.
It's like the compendium of Super Monkey Ball.
And all the mini games, and you can play as Kazuma Kiryu running inside the ball.
There's Sonic in this one. I never got him, but I saw other people playing with Sonic and other Sega characters. But I never unlocked any of that stuff. But some other people have been playing it longer than I have. definitely did. So there's some secret Sega characters in there if you're interested in unlocking them, but that would mean you have to play the game a lot longer than you probably want to. So that's a big pass from me on Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble. I say if you can, and this game might be discounted in like a month to like 30 or 40 bucks. I still wouldn't jump then. Again, to me, $20 or $25 I think is a sweet spot for this, but again, only if you like Super Monkey Ball. I think, Matt, I like the idea and the concept of Super Monkey Ball more than the actual franchise.
Yeah.
The idea of monkeys running around in balls is like mind-bendingly awesome.
Well, there's something appealing to the kind of idea of a new twist on the Marble Madness thing, but they never really did that with this.
Yeah. Yep. So that's a hard pass for me. It's a hard pass on GameFace for Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble. And now, with that, it's time for... That's right, it's time for Name That Game, where I show you 5 screenshots from a video game, and you try to guess the name of the game before this guy. Unfortunately, we weren't able to play it last week because the stream went down. We probably should have apologized for that at the show open. The internet just went down. And by the time it came back up, we had already started the show over, recording offline, and so it wasn't worth trying to get you guys back on, blah, blah, blah. We apologize for that. So we didn't get to play. The good news for me was I already had it ready, so I didn't have to get it ready for this week. The bad part for me, though, is that there was kind of a theme to it last week, and now it doesn't match up, so it might be harder for you guys to get it now. So we'll see. But again, there's a few rules we need to follow here. One, if you have already won this year, do not play. You can only win once per calendar year. So if you have won since this year turned over in 2024, do not play. Also, if you are getting antsy and you're just trying to spam the chat with a bunch of game titles, don't do it. It's going to be on slow mode. You can only put in one chat every 60 seconds. So don't like blow your chance of winning because maybe I put up a new screenshot, you know it right away, but you just guessed all willy-nilly right before that, and you're like trying to type it in and it won't let you. So be careful with how you put your choices in. And then the final thing is you have to like PC games because if you win this, you win a PC game. And again, I want to bring up, the person that won 2 weeks ago still has not reached out to me. So I'm waiting. Just hit me up, and I'll get you your free game. The guy who won last week already got his free game. Or the week before, because obviously we didn't play last week. So, anyway, those are the rules for Name That Game. It's pretty simple. Again, 5 screenshots. You got to beat Matt, and the winner wins a PC game. And I think we're ready with that. Let me get the sound effects up here and get it ready to go. Okay, are you ready, Matt?
Sure.
All right, here is the first screenshot for Name That Game. And you might get it from that. I was very generous with that first screenshot. There's Draylox, who won the last one. Congratulations, Draylox. Hope you like the game that I sent you. There it is. He won. Cinetech just won the first guess. I guess the clues didn't matter. A bunch of people got it. Well, him and Mike's Q got it. Yes, it's The Evil Within. Last week we talked about The Evil Within and Tango Gameworks. And yeah, I made it way too easy, I guess. Well, here's the other 5 screenshots, just for posterity's sake. There's the second one. There's the third one. Here's the fourth one. And here's the last one. And that one definitely would have given it away. I mean, they all were pretty... I wanted to make sure somebody won this one, if you can't tell. And here's the other thing that's awesome. I'm actually going to give Cinetech another round of applause. This is 2 times in a row that the people that helped me build my new PC won Name That Game. Cinetech and Draylox were both invaluable helping me build my new PC. And as luck would have it, they both won Name That Game immediately after helping me. Again, when Draylox won, I was like, it's good to know that karma still exists. It's good to get that reinforced here again. Because sometimes I really wonder if anything like that is real. So anyway, congratulations, Cinetech. You know how to reach out to me, obviously. Or actually, I can just send you a DM on the thread that we've been going back and forth about my PC. And we'll get it hooked up, and you will get your free game. Congratulations, man. You deserve it. I really appreciate you helping me throughout. I mean, he really was like my lifeline. Like the people on Twitter if I had a major problem, I'd go there and they'd help me get over the hump. He was the guy I was constantly going back and forth with. Like, well, now I'm doing this and this is happening. And he was very patient and very kind. So thank you, Cinetike. I really appreciate it, man. Very glad that you won Name That Game. Also good to see a very dedicated sifter who spends a lot of time on the website commenting on things and making our community lively. I love to see people like that win. And your ass should be at sifted.net as well. I don't know why you're not, why you're wasting your time living on the dregs of YouTube. Why are all the gamers on the most horrible place on the internet instead of at sifted.net, where we have moderation?
Why do you think it's the most horrible place on the internet?
What I've really come to, Matt...
Because of who's there.
The conclusion, I think, is that people want that. I think people want the friction. I don't. I want to go someplace where I can talk with adults about video games. That's sifted.net. If that's what you're looking for, come on over. I don't know what you're doing wasting your time other places. Dr. Knievel gives us some bits. That's awesome, man. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. I guess how much time do we have?
I don't know.
We have a couple minutes, actually. Let's answer a question or two. We haven't done Q&A in forever, Matt, on this show. Forever. We'll answer 2 questions here. Texter Glitch, thank you for Twitch Prime. Did we miss anybody else that did Twitch Prime during the show?
I don't see anything.
Which is weird, because it's literally the beginning of the month. So you would think that, like, everybody would need to do it, but I guess not. All right, let's answer a question or two here. Thoughts on Transformers 1 from Eric Cartmenez.
Trailers are terrible, but they showed a near final version of it to a Transformers convention or something, I think in Europe, and the response was extremely positive. Apparently the trailers are making it look like a Minions movie, but like the movie itself actually has some heft to it.
Okay.
So tentatively interested. I mean, I was gonna see it anyway.
Yeah.
But the trailers,
of course.
the trailers make it look like it's for preschoolers.
Yeah.
It's all slapstick nonsense.
Yeah.
But apparently the older fans that saw it at this thing said that it actually is pretty good.
Okay. Let's take maybe we can take 2 more since that was a quick answer. Dr. Knievel, I always watch your show on YouTube. I always enjoy while working or washing dishes. Okay. Awesome, man. Bushy Wookie, as a fairly new member, should I ignore the forum and just focus on articles? A part of me misses the old internet forums and would love to see activity there. That's a great question, and it is interesting that you brought that up as somebody who's new to the website, because here's the thing: like, we never should have launched forums. There's no reason for us to have forums on Sifted. The entire website is a forum, Matt.
Yeah.
Like, honestly,
forums are largely dead as a concept, really.
Right.
It's just comment sections.
Yeah.
now.
I mean, Sifted is a social media network for gamers, basically. So it's like us having a forum is like Twitter having a forum or Facebook having a forum. It doesn't make sense because you can comment on everything right there. Like, why would you watch a trailer?
Like FARC having a forum.
Right. It's like, why would you watch like a trailer on the site or watch GameFace and then want to go to our forums to comment about it when there's a comment section right underneath the piece of content? The big reason that we have forums, and I'm not pissed that we have them or anything. Brent wanted them really badly because he had this new idea for a forum, and he's like, I want to implement it, and he's like, I'll give you a cheap rate on building the forums, and because I want to see my idea come to fruition. I was like, fair enough, okay, and he did. He built them, and if you notice, the pagination in our forums is unlike anything anywhere on the internet. And I'll say this: they work great until threads get really long. And then it becomes a little unmanageable. I ultimately, in the end, I probably would have...
luckily.
Right. Well, yeah. In the end, I probably would have preferred just generic pagination like every forum has. One thing I will say that I was a little disappointed in is when NeoGAF went down, like, nobody was like, well, let's go to Sifted. They have these brand new bleeding edge forums. Like, you can even create your own forums on Sifted. We have these things called crews, and that is one thing that's cool about the Sifted forums that rationalizes their existence, is that we have a thing called crews. If you are even if you only pledge $1 a month, you have access to our crews where you can literally create your own forum. You create a forum and you invite people to that forum, and it's just you and those people in that private forum. I'm in like 10 different crews. I'm in one for NFL football. I'm in one for skateboarding. I'm in one for League of Legends. Like, we have all these crews that are made privately that you guys don't even know about. And that's really the coolest thing about our forums. But to get back to your question, does Sifted really need forums? No. That's like saying, does Discord need a forum? No. So yeah, our forums are not all that active because everyone's commenting on the content on the actual website. Bushy says, completely understand the logic. Thanks. No problem. Do we have one more question, maybe? Suicide Squad Isekai. You have any thoughts on that, Matt?
I barely know what that is.
Okay. Here's maybe one more. You're watching House of the Dragon Season 2. Thoughts so far? I have not watched it yet.
I will not watch it.
He doesn't like Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones Season 8 ruined any interest I have in that entire world forever for any reason. Except if George ever writes the last 2 books, I'll read those. But other than that, all of that media empire reality can go fuck itself. Never. We'll never do that again.
I'm going to wait. I haven't had Max subscription for a long time. I haven't had any streaming subscriptions for months, Matt. I haven't had Netflix or Max or anything. And I'm just going to wait till all the episodes are live, and I'm going to get Max for 1 month and then just binge watch them with my wife. So I haven't watched it yet either. Maybe we got one more. Maybe not. Nope.
Not up. You have to go down if there's any new ones.
Nope. Okay. That'll do it. Before we go, though, I want to say, first of all, thanks to everybody who showed up to watch the show live. You guys make the show better. You fact check us live. You make the show better with your input, your questions. We appreciate it very much. It was good to do some Q&A for the first time in a while. So we appreciate you all very much. For the people who are watching for free on YouTube or listening to the show out on any of the podcast services out there, and it's on all of them, please consider going to patreon.com/sifted and finally supporting us. I know I ask this all the time. Y'all aren't doing it. Like, I'm going to keep asking. I'm not going to stop. We need help. We need money. Our Patreon, again, is at a really low point. We just lost 3 or 4 people who are doing what you're seeing below right now, pledging at $30 or more per month. We just lost like 4 of those. So that's $100 and some a month that's just gone. Like, it's very hard to make up that money with $4 patrons. You do the math, you need like how many people? Like another 50 people at $4 to make up for that one person. So we're kind of in dire straits financially. We could really use the help. So again, I say this all the time, but if you ever think in the back of your head, hey, you know, I should probably support Shane and those guys, like, it'd be great if you could go do that. Like, we'd really appreciate it. And I do understand some people don't have money and you just can't do it. And if that's the case, you can still help us. If you're watching this on YouTube, like the show, share the show on social media. If you like GameFace, say, go on Twitter and be like, dude, if you're not watching this gaming podcast, you're wasting your time. Whatever. There's so many things you can do to help us that don't require money. Review it on the podcast services, like it, subscribe, do all that stuff on YouTube. That makes a difference. Share it on social media. Share it with your friends. Share it in your Discords. All over the place. If you really love GameFace, just share it. Become an evangelist for this show. We need it. We need the help, and we would really appreciate it. So I think with that, we're going to call GameFace episode 393. Again, don't forget that the website will be dark on Thursday for July 4th. There will be no publishing, no new content. I'm taking the day off to eat some grill food and spend some time with my wife, which I don't do enough of. So Thursday, the site will be dark, but otherwise we'll be back here next Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern at twitch.tv/SiftedGames. And again, go to patreon.com/Sifted and help us out, please. We'd really appreciate it. So have yourselves a great day, a great week filled with awesome games. We'll see you next Tuesday. GameFace is up and out.